I managed my wife's father's investment fund for 14 years, making his partners billions. Then he declared at a party, "This is Jake, your wife's new husband. He will replace you. So clean your desk for him." Everyone clapped finally, they said. The next morning, he smirked and asked, "Ready to hand over your client list?" I smiled back and said, "No, I'm here to—" His smile immediately vanished. The champagne flutes caught the light like tiny prisons of gold. I remember that. I remember thinking how appropriate it was. All that wealth, all that power, trapped in delicate glass that could shatter with one wrong move. I was holding one of those flutes when my father-in-law destroyed my life. Everyone, if I could have your attention, please." Richard Calloway's voice cut through the garden party chatter like a conductor's baton. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Of course they did. When a man worth north of $3 billion speaks, the world stops spinning. I was standing near the rose arbor, Sarah beside me. My wife, 14 years married. Her hand had been resting on my forearm, warm through the fabric of my suit jacket. I felt her fingers tighten slightly as her father mounted the small platform the caterers had set up near the fountain. "I know you're all wondering why Margaret and I called you here today," Richard continued, his silver hair perfectly styled, his tan perfectly even, his smile perfectly practiced. "Beyond the pleasure of your company, of course." Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. 70, maybe 80 people scattered across the Callaway Estate's south lawn. Partners from the firm, major clients, family friends, the kind of people who measure net worth in commas, not digits. I'd been to 100 parties like this, maybe 200. 14 years of standing in gardens and ballrooms and penthouses, champagne in hand, smile fixed in place, playing the part Richard had written for me. The devoted son-in-law, the loyal employee, the man who knew his place. And I had known it. God help me, I had known it and I had accepted it because that's what you do when you marry into money like this. You bend, you flex, you accommodate. "As many of you know," Richard said, and something in his tone made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, "my son-in-law, Daniel, has been managing the Callaway Investment Fund for— How long has it been now, Daniel?" Every eye found me. I felt Sarah's hand slip from my arm. 14 years, I said. My voice sounded steady. It shouldn't have. Something was wrong. Something was very, very wrong. 14 years, Richard repeated, like I'd said something remarkable. 14 years of Daniel's steady hand, his conservative approach, his— He paused. The pause stretched. People shifted their weight. His adequate performance. The word landed like a stone in still water. Adequate. Not brilliant. Not exceptional. Not the 37% average annual return I delivered. Not the 18 billion in portfolio growth. Not the zero. Losing years. Adequate. "But all good things must come to an end," Richard continued, and now his smile had edges. "And I think we can all agree that the Callaway Fund deserves more than adequate. It deserves exceptional. It deserves— Well, let me show you." He gestured toward the house. Everyone turned. A man emerged from the French doors. Late 30s, maybe 40, tall, confident stride, designer suit that cost more than most people's cars, sunglasses that caught the afternoon light and threw it back like a challenge. I didn't know him, but Sarah did. I felt it in the way her breath caught, in the subtle shift of her weight away from me, in the hand that had been on my arm and was now clutching her champagne flute like a lifeline. "Everyone," Richard announced, his voice swelling with something that sounded horribly like pride, "I'd like you to meet Jake Morrison. Harvard Business School, 10 years at Goldman Sachs, most recently senior partner at Bridgewater Associates. Jake has agreed to take over management of the Callaway Fund, effective immediately." The applause started slowly. Then it built, hands coming together in that peculiar rhythm of the wealthy, enthusiastic enough to show approval, restrained enough to maintain dignity. Jake removed his sunglasses. His eyes found Sarah. He smiled, she smiled back, and something inside my chest cracked like ice in spring. "Jake brings fresh energy," Richard continued over the applause. "Fresh ideas, fresh perspective, the kind of aggressive, innovative thinking that will take us into the next chapter of growth." He paused again. This time I knew the pause was deliberate. This time I knew exactly what was coming. And, as an added bonus, Richard said, his eyes finding mine across the crowd, Jake is also Sarah's new husband-to-be. They've been seeing each other for the past 6 months, and, well, I'll let them share their happy news. The world didn't stop. That's what they tell you, isn't it? That when your life implodes, time freezes, everything goes silent, you float in some suspended moment of catastrophic realization. They're wrong. The world kept spinning. The fountain kept burbling. Someone's champagne flute clinked against another. A woman in a coral dress laughed at something, apparently missing Richard's announcement entirely, and my wife, stepped forward away from me and walked toward Jake Morrison like she was crossing a bridge she had been meaning to cross for a long time. He met her halfway. His arm slid around her waist with the ease of repetition, of habit, of intimate familiarity. We wanted to wait until it was official with the fun before announcing, Sarah said, and her voice was steady and clear and completely devoid of anything resembling shame. But yes, Jake and I are engaged. The wedding is planned for October. More applause, louder this time. A few whistles. Someone shouted, "Congratulations!" I stood very still. My champagne flute was still in my hand. I noticed, distantly, that I hadn't spilled a drop. "So, Daniel," Richard said, and now he was looking directly at me. His smile was the smile of a man who has just pulled off something he's very proud of. "I hope you'll understand. Business is business. And Jake here is simply, well, he's simply better qualified. I'm sure you'll agree, it's nothing personal." Nothing personal. My wife was engaged to another man. My job, the job I'd built from a $300 million starting portfolio to a $21 billion powerhouse, was being handed to that man, and everyone was applauding. Finally, someone said near the back of the crowd, a man's voice relieved, "I've been saying for years Daniel was too cautious." "About time," another voice agreed. A woman, this time. Fresh blood was desperately needed. I turned my head slowly, searching for the speakers. I found them. Thomas Beckworth, Helena Price, both major investors, both people I'd made tens of millions for, both nodding in approval. "Oh, Daniel, don't look so stricken," Richard said, his voice carrying that particular tone the wealthy use when they're being magnanimous. "You'll receive an excellent severance package, and I'm sure with your resume, you'll land on your feet somewhere, perhaps a smaller fund, something more your speed." Laughter. Someone actually laughed. I looked at Sarah. She was looking at Jake. Her hand was in his. The engagement ring, a diamond I definitely didn't buy, couldn't have afforded, wouldn't have chosen, caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across her dress. "Sarah," I said. She turned. For just a moment, her expression was unguarded. What I saw there wasn't guilt. It wasn't even pity. It was relief. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way," she said. "But honestly, Daniel, we haven't been happy for years. You know that. And when I met Jake at the Hamptons fundraiser last spring, it just, it felt right, like everything finally made sense." "6 months," I said. "You've been 6 months." "7, actually," Jake said. And his voice was smooth and confident and completely untroubled. "But who's counting?" He laughed. Several people joined him. "Now," Richard said, clapping his hands together once, sharply, "let's not let this become awkward. Daniel, I trust you'll clean out your office tomorrow morning. Jake will be moving in by noon. I'd appreciate it if you could leave your client contact list, your files, your analysis reports, everything organized and ready for transition." I looked at him, really looked at him. Richard Calloway, the man whose daughter I'd married fresh out of Wharton, the man who'd given me a job when I had nothing but an MBA and ambition, the man I'd spent 14 years enriching, protecting, building an empire for, the man who'd just betrayed me in front of everyone who mattered in my professional world. "Daniel," Richard prompted, "we're all waiting for your answer. Will you be professional about this?" 70-some people watching. My wife, ex-wife, I supposed, though I didn't remember signing divorce papers, holding hands with another man. My father-in-law looking at me with that expression of mild impatience he usually reserved for slow waiters in traffic jams. I smiled. "Of course," I said. "I'll be there tomorrow morning." "Excellent," Richard boomed. "Now let's continue celebrating. To Jake and Sarah. To Jake and Sarah," the crowd echoed, raising their glasses. I raised mine too, took a sip. The champagne tasted like metal and ash. Then I set down the glass very carefully on a nearby table. I walked through the crowd, people parted. Some looked away, some looked at me with something like sympathy. Most looked at me like I'd already ceased to exist. I made it to my car, parked in the circular drive with all the other luxury vehicles. Mine distinctly older, distinctly less impressive, and sat in the driver's seat with the door closed and the windows up. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't punch the steering wheel or tear at my hair or any of the things people do in movies when their world disintegrates. I sat very still, and I began to think, because Richard Calloway had just made three critical mistakes. First, he'd humiliated me publicly, which meant I had nothing to lose. Second, he demanded I hand over my client list tomorrow, which meant he didn't realize what that list actually was. And third, he'd assumed that because he owned the fund, he owned the relationships. He didn't. I pulled out my phone, made a call. It rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Daniel, I just heard. Richard is messaging everyone. Are you? I'm fine, I said. Can you meet me at the office? Tonight, 11 o'clock. A pause. Then, of course. But Daniel, what are you thinking? I looked back at the house. Through the windows, I could see the party continuing. People laughing, celebrating. Sarah and Jake at the center of it all, accepting congratulations like conquering heroes. I'm thinking, I said, that Richard just asked me to clean out my desk, and I'm thinking I should be very, very thorough about it. I hung up, started the engine, drove away from the Calloway estate for what I knew would be the last time. Behind me in my rearview mirror, I watched the mansion shrink and fade. I didn't know it then, but I would never speak to Sarah again. I didn't know it then, but Richard Calloway would spend the next 6 months trying desperately to reach me. I didn't know it then, but by this time, next year, Jake Morrison would be unemployed, Sarah would be divorced twice, and the Calloway Investment Fund would be a crater where a fortune used to be. All I knew, driving away in the fading afternoon light, was that tomorrow morning, Richard would ask me to hand over my client list, and I was very much looking forward to telling him no. The Callaway Capital offices occupied floors 47 through 52 of a glass tower in downtown Boston. I'd spent 14 years taking those elevators, 14 years of watching the numbers climb, of feeling that peculiar stomach drop sensation, of stepping out into the reception area with its marble floors and abstract art and carefully cultivated atmosphere, of intimidating wealth. I arrived at 11:15 p.m. The building was nearly empty. A security guard I'd known for 8 years, Marcus, whose daughter was starting at MIT in the fall on a scholarship I'd helped him set up, nodded me through without question. Heard what happened, Marcus said quietly. I'm sorry, Mr. Sutton. Don't be, I said. It's been coming for a long time. That was true. Not the way Marcus thought. Not the betrayal, the replacement, the public humiliation. But the ending, yes, that had been inevitable. You can only build someone else's empire for so long before you start wondering why you don't have your own. The 47th floor was dark, except for emergency lighting. I didn't turn on the overheads. Didn't need to. I'd walked these halls in the dark before, during late nights and early mornings, during the times when the markets were shifting and portfolios needed tending and fortunes hung in the balance. My office was at the northeast corner, windows overlooking the harbor. A view I'd earned. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. Someone was already there. You're late, Michael Chen said from the chair beside my desk. I've been here since 10:45. Do you know how creepy this place is with all the lights off? I flipped the switch. Light flooded the space, revealing Michael's familiar face. 38. Sharp eyes behind stylish glasses. Expensive haircut, slightly mussed from running his hands through it. You could have turned on the lights, I said, and announced to building security that someone's here, please. I do have some sense of drama. He stood, gestured to my desk. So, you want to tell me what we're doing? Michael Chen, my associate analyst for 9 years before I'd helped him move to a senior position at Fidelity. Also my closest friend. Also the only person in my professional circle who'd answered his phone tonight with something other than awkward condolences. I sat down behind my desk, ran my hand across the surface. Mahogany. Real mahogany, not veneer. A gift from Richard on my 5th anniversary with the firm. A symbol of permanence, stability, belonging. How quickly symbols become lies. I need to ask you something, I said, and I need you to answer honestly. When have I ever lied to you? That time you told me the Thai place delivered until midnight. That was a mistake, not a lie. There's a difference. What do you need? I pulled my laptop from my bag, opened it, and turned it toward him. On the screen, a spreadsheet. Names, numbers, percentages, dates. Michael leaned forward. His eyes tracked across the data. I watched his expression shift. Curiosity to confusion to understanding to something that might have been awe. Is this... He stopped, started again. Daniel, is this what I think it is? That depends on what you think it is. This is the complete ownership structure of every major holding in the Callaway Fund. Not just the listed ones, the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the private equity positions that don't show up on the quarterly reports. He looked up at me. How do you have this? Richard guards this information like it's the key to his entire empire? Yes. I have it, I said, because I built that empire. Every structure you're looking at, I designed it. Every holding, I sourced it. Every deal, I negotiated it. Richard signs the papers, I do the work. Michael sat back. His finger tapped against his knee, a nervous habit he'd never managed to break. What are you planning? He asked. I'm planning, I said carefully, to follow Richard's instructions. Tomorrow morning, he's going to ask me to hand over my client list and leave. And I'm going to do exactly that. But what he doesn't understand is that my client list isn't just names and numbers. It's relationships. It's trust. It's 14 years of me personally managing their money, making them richer, protecting their interests, being available at 2 a.m. when markets crashed, being the one who called them first with good news and bad. I turned the laptop back toward myself, typed a command. A new window opened, an email draft. Richard thinks clients invest in funds, I continued. He thinks it's about the name on the door, the prestige of the Callaway brand, the marble floors and the abstract art and the office with a view. And it's not? No. Wealthy people don't invest in brands. They invest in people. They invest in relationships. They invest in the person who answered their call during the 2008 crash and told them exactly what to do. The person who made them an extra $12 million during COVID by seeing the recovery coming 3 months before everyone else. The person who knows their kids' names and their retirement timeline and their risk tolerance, not from a form, but from 100 conversations. Michael was nodding slowly. They invest in you. They invest in me. I showed him the email. He read it. Then he read it again. You're going to send this to every single client? He asked. Every single one. 47 major investors. Combined portfolio value of $21 billion. I'm going to send it tomorrow morning right before I walk into Richard's office. And you're telling them, I'm telling them the truth, that I'm leaving Callaway Capital, that I'm starting my own fund, that their investment is portable if they choose to move it, and that if they want to continue working with me, with the person who's actually been managing their money, they have 30 days to transfer their assets. Michael let out a long breath. Richard will sue you into the ground. Non-compete clause. Client poaching. Breach of fiduciary duty. He'll bury you in legal fees before you can... My employment contract expired 18 months ago, I said. Richard never renewed it. He kept saying he would, kept promising his lawyers were drafting something new. It never happened. I have no non-compete. I have no non-solicitation agreement. I'm free to start my own fund and contact anyone I want. The room went very quiet. He forgot, Michael said finally. He forgot. Because I was family. Because I was his daughter's husband. Because he thought I'd never leave, never question, never challenge. He took me for granted, and now you're going to destroy him. I shook my head. No, I'm going to do exactly what he told me to do. I'm going to be professional. I'm going to clean out my desk. I'm going to hand him my client list. But the clients won't be his anymore. That's not my problem. That's his failure to maintain relationships. I'm just exercising my right to start a new business and inform people who've worked with me for over a decade where I'll be. Michael stood up, paced to the window, looked out at the dark harbor. Lights reflected on the water like scattered diamonds. This will work, he said quietly. You know that, right? You're not hoping or dreaming or taking a wild shot. This will actually work. Half those clients will follow you, maybe more. I know. Richard will lose billions in assets under management. Billions. The fund will contract by, Jesus, Daniel, you could cut his fund in half. I know. He'll be ruined. Not financially, he's too rich to ever actually be broke. But professionally, reputation-wise, everyone will know Jake Morrison drove away Richard's entire client base in less than a month. That's not quite true, I said. Jake Morrison won't drive them away. Jake Morrison won't have anything to do with it. Because what Richard doesn't realize, what he won't realize until it's too late, is that Jake Morrison has no idea how to actually run this fund. I pulled up another file. Michael came back to the desk, looked at the screen. For 14 years, I said, I've been the one doing the real work, the analysis, the modeling, the risk assessment, the relationship management. Richard handles the schmoozing. Jake probably handles it too. He seems like a schmoozer. But schmoozing doesn't make money. Strategy makes money. Work makes money. Knowing which tech startup to invest in before anyone else does. Knowing when to short a sector before it collapses. Knowing how to structure a deal so the tax burden falls in the right place at the right time. And Jake doesn't know how to do that. Jake knows how to follow trend lines and make PowerPoint presentations. I checked his record at Bridgewater. Public information. He was fine, solid. He managed a $4 billion portfolio and returned 8% annually. Very respectable. But you returned 37%. I returned 37% for 14 years. Through crashes and recoveries and bull markets and corrections consistently. Do you know how rare that is? Very. Extraordinarily rare. There are maybe a dozen fund managers in the world who can claim that record. And Richard just handed my entire portfolio to someone whose greatest achievement is being adequately above average. Michael sat down again, looked at me with something like wonder. You're not angry, he said. Of course I'm angry. No, I mean, you're not furious. You're not losing your mind. You're not calling Richard names or throwing things or plotting elaborate revenge fantasies. You're calm, you're methodical, you're professional. Terrifying. I smiled. First genuine smile since the party. Richard asked me to be professional. I'm going to be extremely professional. And Sarah? The smile faded. What about Sarah? Are you gonna, I don't know, fight for her? Try to win her back? She's your wife. She's engaged to another man. She's been sleeping with him for 7 months. She looked me in the eye today and said it felt right, like I was a jacket that didn't fit anymore. Something to be donated, disposed of, forgotten. So you're just going to let her go? I thought about that, about 14 years of marriage. About the woman I'd loved, or thought I'd loved, or had once loved, and somewhere along the way stopped loving without noticing. About the way she'd smiled at Jake, the relief in her eyes. I already have, I said. She made her choice. I'm making mine. Michael nodded slowly. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. It was a text he'd drafted but not sent. Count me in. Whatever you need. You'd leave Fidelity, I asked? You've got a great position there, senior analyst, real equity. Why would you risk that? Because Fidelity has 300 analysts. You'll have one, me. I'll be employee number one at whatever you're calling this new fund. I'll have real ownership, real influence, real exposure to risk. Sure, but also exposure to reward. You're going to pull this off, Daniel. You're going to take half of Richard's clients, build a new fund, and probably become one of the most successful independent fund managers in New England. And I'd rather be there for that than analyzing portfolios for people who don't remember my name. He sent the text, to himself, a record, a commitment. When do you want me to start? He asked. Can you give notice tomorrow? I can give notice tonight. Email's already drafted, just waiting for your word. You were that sure I'd be starting something? I was that sure you wouldn't go quietly. What do you need from me first? I opened another file. This one was a list. Shorter, more detailed. Names with annotations. These are Richard's 15 biggest clients, I said. The ones who represent 60% of the fund's value. I need you to do background research on every one of them. Not public information. Deep information. Personal information. What they care about. What keeps them up at night. What they're planning 5 years from now. Can you do that? Some of them I already know. The others, give me a week. You have 4 days. Then I'll sleep less. What else? I need office space, nothing fancy, but legitimate, professional, the kind of place that says serious operation, not guy working from his apartment. I have a contact in commercial real estate. I'll call her tomorrow. I need incorporation papers filed for a new investment fund. I need licenses transferred. I need accounts set up. I need you to breathe, Michael interrupted. You're going to give yourself a heart attack, and then Richard wins by default. We'll handle this, all of it. But first, you need to go home and sleep. I can't go home. Why not? Because home is the penthouse Sarah and I share in the North End. 1,400 square feet, 2 bedrooms, a view of the harbor that costs $12,000 a month. And I'm guessing that right about now, Jake Morrison is helping her pack my things. Michael winced. Ah, right, okay. You can crash at my place. I can get a hotel. You can stay at my place. Guest room's already made up. Besides, you're going to need someone to stop you from checking your phone every 5 minutes to see if Sarah's texted. She won't text. Probably not. But you'll check anyway. That's what people do. Come on. We'll grab your stuff from the office, head back to my place, order something absurdly unhealthy for delivery, and start planning exactly how we're going to break Richard Calloway's empire. He was right. I knew he was right, and I stood up, started gathering items from my desk. Laptop. Files. The small jade elephant. A gift from a Chinese investor whose portfolio I'd grown by $400 million. The framed photo of... I stopped. Looked at the photo. It was from our wedding. Sarah in white. Me in a tuxedo. Both of us young, smiling, absolutely convinced we were standing at the beginning of something wonderful. I turned the frame face down, left it on the desk. Ready? Michael asked. Almost. I pulled up the email I'd drafted earlier, reread it one more time. The tone was perfect, professional but personal, informative but not presumptuous. The kind of message that respected the client's autonomy while making the path forward crystal clear. You're really sending that tomorrow morning? Michael asked. 9 a.m., right before I meet with Richard. And you think they'll move their money? I closed the laptop, looked at Michael. I don't think, I said. I know, because every person on that list has my personal cell phone number. Every one of them has called me at odd hours. Every one of them has trusted me with their wealth and their children's futures and their retirement dreams. They don't know Jake Morrison. They know me. Richard will counteroffer. Higher returns, lower fees, whatever it takes to keep them. Let him. Money isn't why they'll stay or go. Trust is. And you can't manufacture trust in a sales pitch. You build it over years, over shared experiences, over proving again and again that you're worth believing in. And you've done that. I've done that. We left the office, rode the elevator down in silence. Marcus buzzed us out through the lobby. Good luck, Mr. Sutton, he said. Thank you, Marcus. How's Keisha doing with her college prep? His face lit up. She's doing great. Those SAT tutoring recommendations you made, she scored a 1480. Can you believe it? I absolutely can. She's brilliant. IT's lucky to get her. We stepped out into the cool night air. The city was quiet, just the occasional car passing, the distant sound of sirens, the gentle urban hum that never quite stops. You did that, Michael said as we walked toward his car. The tutoring thing. I connected him with a program, that's all. You paid for the program. Don't think I don't know. I saw the invoice in your expense reports. It wasn't expensive. It was $8,000. Like I said, not expensive. Michael shook his head, smiling. You know what Richard doesn't understand? What he'll never understand. What? This. This is why your clients will follow you, not because you made them richer, though you did, but because you actually care about them, about their kids, about their dreams. You're not just managing money. You're managing lives, and people know the difference. We reached his car. A Tesla Model S, midnight blue, immaculately clean. Careful, I said. You're starting to sound sentimental. Maybe I am. It's been an emotional day. Get in. Let's go order those burgers and start planning our hostile takeover. It's not a takeover. It's a new beginning. Potato. Either way, by this time next month, Richard Calloway is going to wish he'd been a lot nicer to you at that party. I climbed into the passenger seat, buckled in, watched Boston slide past the windows as Michael drove us toward his apartment in Cambridge. My phone buzzed. A text, unknown number. I opened it. Hey, it's Thomas Beckworth. Heard about today? Just wanted to say, I know I laughed at Richard's announcement, but that was awkward social reflex, not genuine amusement. You've done great work for me. If you land somewhere new, let me know. I mean that. I showed Michael the text. That's one of the 15, isn't it? He said. Number 3 on the list. 600 million portfolio. And he's already reaching out before you've even sent the email. People talk. Word travels fast in this industry. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I typed a response to Thomas. Appreciate that. Will definitely keep you posted. Hope you're well. Then I said to Michael, it's an excellent thing. It means tomorrow morning isn't going to be a surprise. It's going to be confirmation. They're already wondering where I'll go. I'm just going to tell them. And Richard has no idea any of this is happening. Richard is probably still at the party, celebrating his brilliant personnel decision, congratulating Jake on his engagement, basking in the approval of all those people who think fresh blood was desperately needed. He's going to have a very bad morning. Yes, I said. Yes, he is. We drove in silence for a while. My phone buzzed twice more. 2 more texts. 2 more clients reaching out, asking what my plans were, offering support. The night had started with humiliation, public betrayal, the complete destruction of my professional identity and personal life. But somewhere between that garden party and this car ride, something had shifted. I wasn't the victim of Richard Calloway's ambition anymore. I was the architect of his downfall. And tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., I was going to lay the first stone. I didn't sleep well. That's probably obvious. You don't get your life demolished and then drift off into peaceful slumber, no matter how expensive the guest room mattress is. I lay there in Michael's guest room, which was decorated in shades of gray and had the impersonal feel of a space designed by an algorithm, and watched shadows move across the ceiling, car headlights from the street below, occasional footsteps from Michael's room. The building settling. Mostly, I thought about Sarah. That's the thing about betrayal. It's not the dramatic moments that haunt you. It's the small ones. The accumulation of tiny deceits that suddenly rearrange themselves into a pattern you can't unsee. I thought about 6 months ago. 7 months, actually. Jake had corrected me on that, the bastard. 7 months ago was April, spring in Boston. Sarah had gone to the Hamptons for a fundraiser, environmental something, I couldn't remember the specific cause. She'd asked if I wanted to come. I'd said no, too much work, portfolio rebalancing, a merger that needed attention, the usual. She'd said that was fine. She'd said she understood. She'd kissed my cheek and told me not to work too hard. Then she'd driven to the Hamptons and met Jake Morrison. How many other moments were there? How many working late nights? How many girls' weekend trips? How many times had I been sitting in my office, managing billions, while my wife was... I rolled over, checked my phone. 3:47 a.m., 4 messages, all from different clients, all variations on the same theme. What's your next move? I didn't respond. Not yet. The email would go out in 5 hours, everything formal, everything documented, everything by the book. At 4:15, I gave up on sleep. Showered in Michael's guest bathroom. I'd packed an overnight bag the night before, one of the first things we'd grabbed from my office, where I kept a spare suit for emergencies. I dressed carefully. Navy suit, white shirt, silver tie. The uniform of a man who knows exactly what he's doing. Michael was already awake when I emerged. He was in his kitchen, 3 monitors set up on his dining table, typing rapidly. Client profiles, he explained without looking up. Figured I'd get started. I've got deep background on 7 of the 15 so far. Did you know Patricia Hendricks, number 5 on your list, is planning to start a nonprofit for music education? I knew she was interested in music education. Didn't know she was starting something. Well, she is. Filed the paperwork 3 weeks ago. Hasn't announced it publicly yet. Probably waiting for the right moment. Seems like the kind of thing a forward-thinking fund manager might want to support. Maybe offer some financial structure advice, pro bono, of course. I smiled. You're learning. I've been paying attention. Coffee? God, yes. He poured me a cup. Black, no sugar, exactly how I take it. We'd worked together long enough that this kind of thing was automatic. What time's your meeting with Richard? Michael asked. Officially, 9:30. He emailed last night, very formal, very curt. Subject line, Transition meeting, like I'm a project being handed off. What time are you sending the email? 9 a.m. I want it in their inboxes a full 30 minutes before Richard and I talk. That way, when he asks me to hand over my client list, I can honestly say I've already been in touch with them. He's going to lose his mind, probably. He might try to stop you, physically, I mean. He might, I don't know, he's going to be very upset. Richard won't do anything physical. He's a businessman. He'll threaten legal action. He'll call me names. He'll try to intimidate me into backing down, but he won't actually do anything violent. That's not his style. And if I'm wrong, if he does try something, then I'll have an even better lawsuit. But it won't come to that. Richard's going to be shocked, yes. Angry, absolutely. But mostly, he's going to be calculating. He's going to immediately start thinking about damage control, how to spin this, how to keep the clients who don't leave it, how to salvage his reputation. Michael took a sip of his coffee. You've really thought this through. I've had 14 years to think it through. I just didn't know I was thinking it through until yesterday afternoon. We spent the next few hours in quiet preparation. Michael continued his research. I reviewed my email one final time, made minor adjustments, checked every sentence for tone and clarity. At 8:45 a.m., I opened my laptop, pulled up the recipient list. 47 names. 47 people who'd trusted me with their wealth. My finger hovered over the send button. Having second thoughts? Michael asked. No, just appreciating the moment. This is the kind of thing you don't get to do twice in a lifetime. The kind of thing that either launches you into a new stratosphere or destroys you completely. No pressure, I agreed. At exactly 9 o'clock a.m., I pressed send. The email went out. 47 simultaneous messages, each one personalized with the recipient's name, each one containing the same basic information. I was leaving Callaway Capital. I was starting my own fund, Sutton Capital Management. I would be offering the same level of service, the same strategic approach, the same personal attention they'd come to expect. If they chose to move their assets, I would facilitate the transition. If they chose to stay with Callaway, I wished them well and appreciated our time working together. Professional, courteous, clear, devastating. My phone started buzzing immediately. Texts, calls. I ignored them. I'd respond later. Right now, I had an appointment to keep. You're really going in there? Michael asked. I told Richard I'd clean out my desk and hand over my client list. I'm a man of my word. You're insane. Possibly. Wish me luck. You don't need luck. You need a lawyer on speed dial and maybe a bodyguard. I grabbed my bag, already packed with the last personal items from my office. I'll text you when I'm done. If you don't hear from me in 2 hours, assume Richard's had me thrown out a window. That's not funny. Little bit funny. I left Michael's apartment. The morning was cool, clear, the kind of October day that makes you remember why people love New England. I walked to the T station, took the Green Line downtown, emerged near my office building. My office building. That phrase was going to take some adjusting. Marcus was at his post. He looked at me with concern. Mr. Sutton, are you sure you want to? I'm sure, thanks, Marcus. I rode the elevator up, stepped out onto the 47th floor. The receptionist, Diane, who'd worked here longer than I had, looked up and immediately looked away, uncomfortable. He's in his office, she said quietly. He's expecting you. Thank you, Diane. I walked past her desk, down the hall, toward the corner office. Richard's office, the big one. The one with 2 walls of windows and furniture that cost more than some people's houses. The door was open. Richard was at his desk. Jake was standing beside him. Both of them looked up as I entered. Daniel, Richard said. His voice was cold. All the magnanimous pretense from yesterday was gone. This was Richard Callaway, the businessman. The shark. You're late. I checked my watch. 9:32 a.m., 2 minutes. Traffic, I said. I closed the door. I did. Then I walked to the center of the office and set my bag down. Inside it, a portable hard drive, a few personal items, nothing that belonged to the company. I trust you've prepared the client list, Richard said. I have. And the files, the analysis reports, the transition documents Jake will need, all accessible from the server. Jake can have IT give him my login credentials. Everything's organized by client name. Jake shifted his weight. He hadn't said anything yet. I wondered if he was uncomfortable, if some small part of him recognized the absolute wrongness of the situation. Probably not. People like Jake don't get ahead by having consciences. Good, Richard said. Then I believe we're done here. I'll have HR send over your severance paperwork. You'll be receiving 6 months' salary, which is more than generous, considering. Considering what? I interrupted. Considering I made you billions? Considering I worked 14-hour days for 14 years? Considering I sacrificed my health, my personal life, and apparently my marriage to build your legacy? Richard's expression hardened. Considering you were adequately compensated for your time. You received an excellent salary, benefits, bonuses. You lived well. Don't stand in my office and pretend you were some kind of victim. I'm not pretending anything. I'm just clarifying. You asked me to be professional. I'm being professional. But let's not pretend this was some kind of mutual, amicable parting. You betrayed me. You humiliated me. You threw me away like I was nothing. You were becoming complacent, Richard snapped. Your returns were good, fine, they were excellent. But your strategy was conservative, boring. The fund needed fresh energy, innovation, risk tolerance, things you've never had. I had a 37% average annual return, which could have been higher with more aggressive positioning, or could have been catastrophically lower, but you'll find that out soon enough. Jake finally spoke. Is that a threat? I looked at him, really looked at him. He was handsome, I'd give him that. Confident. The kind of man who'd spent his entire life being told he was special, talented, destined for greatness. The kind of man who'd never actually been tested. No, I said. It's an observation. You're stepping into a role you're not qualified for. You're managing money you don't understand for people you don't know. And Richard here is assuming you can replicate what I built. You can't. That's not a threat. That's mathematics. You arrogant, Jake started forward. Enough, Richard said sharply. Daniel, I don't know what you're trying to accomplish with this little speech, but it's not working. You're done here. Finished. And frankly, I think you should be grateful I'm not suing you for. My phone rang. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen. Thomas Beckworth, number 3 on my list. I answered it. Thomas, I said pleasantly, turning slightly away from Richard and Jake. Good to hear from you. Did you get my email? Richard's eyes narrowed. I saw the moment he understood, the moment the pieces clicked into place. That's wonderful, I continued into the phone. Yeah, I'll have my attorney send over the transfer paperwork. Should be seamless. 30 days is perfect. No. Thank you. I appreciate your trust. I hung up, looked at Richard. His face had gone from hard to pale. What did you do? He asked quietly. I sent my client list exactly as requested. I informed them of my new position and gave them the option to move their assets if they wished. Thomas Beckworth just opted to move. $600 million. You can't. I can. I have no non-compete. You never renewed my contract, remember? You kept saying you would. Kept promising. It never happened. I'm free to start my own fund. I'm free to contact anyone I choose. I'm simply exercising my rights as an independent professional. My phone rang again. Patricia Hendricks. I answered it. Had the same conversation. Ended with, your account will be transferred within 30 days. Looking forward to continuing our work together. I hung up, looked at Richard. He was standing now. His hands were flat on his desk. His face was transitioning from pale to red. How many? He asked. How many what? How many did you contact? All of them. 47 clients. That's my list. That's what you asked for. Jake looked at Richard. How much if they all leave? 21 billion, I said helpfully. Give or take, of course. They won't all leave, and so some will stay. Some are loyal to the Callaway name. But I'm estimating 60 to 70% will move. That's roughly 13 to 15 billion in transferred assets. The room was very quiet. Then Richard said, I'll destroy you. I'll tie you up in legal proceedings for years. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. You'll do nothing, I said calmly, because I've done nothing illegal, nothing unethical, nothing that violates any agreement I have with this company. You want to sue me? Go ahead. Discovery will be fascinating. We'll get to examine exactly why you never renewed my contract. We'll get to discuss how you replaced me with your daughter's affair partner. We'll get to talk about hostile work environment, constructive dismissal, and whether publicly humiliating an employee at a party constitutes grounds for legal action. I picked up my bag. But here's what's really going to happen, I continued. You're going to let me walk out of here. You're going to realize that fighting me will cost you more in legal fees, in reputation damage, in time, than just accepting that you made a catastrophic error in judgment. And then you're going to turn to Jake here and hope, really, genuinely hope, that he's somehow capable of managing what's left of your fund. I walked up toward the door, stopped, turned back. Oh, and Richard, you asked me yesterday if I'd be professional about this. I am being professional, extremely professional. If I were being personal, I'd mention that your daughter has been cheating on me for 7 months. I'd mention that you knew it, you had to have known, and you said nothing. I'd mention that you're not just a bad boss, you're a bad father, a bad person, and a bad judge of character. I opened the door. But I won't mention any of that, I said, because I'm being professional. I walked out, down the hall, past Diane, who was staring at her computer screen like it might save her from having to acknowledge what was happening. Past empty offices and conference rooms and all the infrastructure of wealth I'd helped build. Into the elevator. Down 47 floors, out through the lobby. Marcus stopped me at the door. Mr. Sutton? Yes? That thing you said about being professional? That was the most professional middle finger I've ever seen. I smiled. Thank you, Marcus. That means a lot. I walked out into the October morning, pulled out my phone, 17 missed calls, 23 text messages. I scrolled through them. Clients, every single one. Some confirming transfers, some asking questions, some just expressing support. 3 from unknown numbers. I opened those first. The first, this is Margaret Calloway. We need to talk. Please call me. Margaret, Richard's wife, Sarah's mother. The second, it's Sarah. Please don't do this. You're being vindictive. This isn't you. I stared at that one for a long moment. Vindictive. Interesting word choice. Not sorry, not regretful, not even angry, just vindictive. As if I were the one doing something wrong. The third message, Jake Morrison here, we should talk. Man to man. Clear the air. Coffee? I deleted all 3 messages, then I called Michael. How'd it go? He asked immediately. Better than expected. Richard looked like he was having a stroke. Jake looked confused. I walked out before either of them could stop me. And the clients? So far, 4 confirmed transfers, that's $3 billion. I'm expecting more calls throughout the day. Holy shit. Yeah. Where are you now? Standing on the sidewalk outside my former office building, trying to figure out what happens next. What happens next is you come to my office. Well, our office now, I guess. I found a space. It's not amazing, but it's available immediately and it's in a good location. We can work from there while we set everything else up. Send me the address. Sending now, and Daniel, yeah, congratulations. You just pulled off the most elegant hostile takeover I've ever seen. And you didn't even need to be hostile. You just needed to be honest. I hung up. Started walking. My phone kept buzzing, kept lighting up with messages. The professional infrastructure of my life was realigning in real time, billions of dollars of assets shifting from one fund to another. From Richard's legacy to mine, somewhere behind me, 47 floors up, Richard Calloway was probably making phone calls, probably shouting at lawyers, probably realizing that the adequate fund manager he just replaced was the only thing holding his empire together. And somewhere else, I didn't know where, didn't care where, Sarah was reading my lack of response to her text, and probably telling Jake that I was being unreasonable, that I was taking this too personally, that I needed to be mature about the situation. I kept walking. The sun was bright, the air was cool. The city moved around me with its usual indifferent rhythm, and for the first time in 14 years, I wasn't walking towards something Richard wanted or something Sarah expected or something I was supposed to be. I was walking towards something I'd built, something that was mine. The office Michael found was on the 12th floor of a building in the financial district. It wasn't impressive, 3 rooms, decent lighting, windows that faced another building instead of the harbor. The furniture was standard corporate issue, the kind of stuff you could order from a catalog and have delivered in 48 hours. It was perfect. I know it's not what you're used to, Michael said as he showed me around, but the lease is month to month, utilities are included, and we can move in today. I figured we'd work from here while we look for something permanent. It's exactly what we need, I said. I meant it. This wasn't about appearances anymore. This was about function. We spent the rest of that day setting up. 2 desks, 2 computers, a printer, a whiteboard, file cabinets, the infrastructure of a business. My phone didn't stop. By noon, I had 7 confirmed transfers, $5 billion. By 3 p.m., 12 transfers, $9 billion. By the time the markets closed it at 4, 18 clients had committed to moving their assets. 18 out of 47. $12 billion. Richard had lost over half his fund in 7 hours. I was sitting at my new desk, looking at a spreadsheet of transfer confirmations, when Michael's phone rang. He answered it, listened, and his expression shifted to something I couldn't quite read. "Yes, she's right here," he said. Then to me, "Margaret Calloway wants to come by. She's in the building. Downstairs." I sat back. "Did you tell her where we are?" "No, she already knew. She said she got the address from Thomas Beckworth." Of course she did. Thomas and Margaret were friends. I should have anticipated this. "Tell her to come up," I said. Michael relayed the message, hung up, and looked at me with concern. "Are you sure about this?" "No, but avoiding her won't make her go away. And honestly, I am curious." 5 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Michael opened it. Margaret Calloway was 63 years old and had the kind of elegant presence that comes from a lifetime of wealth. Silver hair in a perfect bob. Designer clothes that probably cost more than our entire office setup. Pearls. Always pearls. She looked around the office, at the plain walls, at the basic furniture, at me, sitting behind a desk that couldn't have been more different from the mahogany monument I'd had yesterday. "Daniel," she said. "Margaret, may I sit?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat, folded her hands in her lap. Comforted, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "Would you like coffee?" Michael offered. "Water?" "No, thank you." She looked at him. "Would you mind giving us a moment?" Michael glanced at me. I nodded. He left, closing the door behind him. Margaret and I sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the city hummed its endless song. Inside, the air conditioning clicked on with a mechanical sigh. "I didn't know," she said finally. "About Sarah and Jake. I want you to understand that. Richard knew. He knew for months, but he didn't tell me. I found out yesterday at the party, along with everyone else. I believed her. Margaret had always been kind to me. Not warm. Margaret wasn't a warm person, but fair, respectful. She'd treated me like family, not like an employee who'd married into the dynasty. "Okay," I said. When I found out, when I realized what Richard had done, I told him he was a fool, that he'd just destroyed the best thing that ever happened to his fund. He didn't listen. He said you were replaceable. He said Jake was an upgrade. He said—" She stopped, looked down at her hands. "He said I didn't understand business," she finished quietly. "That I should let him handle it. That's what he always says when he doesn't want my input. Let me handle it." "Why are you here?" I asked. Not unkindly, just honestly. Because this morning, Richard got 18 phone calls from clients announcing they were leaving. By this afternoon, that number had grown to 25. "Do you know what that's going to do to the fund?" "Yes, I built that fund. I know exactly what it's going to do. It's going to crater us. Not financially, we have personal wealth beyond the fund, but professionally, reputationally. Richard's entire legacy, 50 years of building the Calloway name, is going to be reduced to a cautionary tale about what happens when you mistreat your top talent. That's not my problem. I know. I'm not here to ask you to fix it. I'm not even here to ask you to stop. I'm here to—" She paused, searching for words. "I'm here to apologize. For my daughter. For my husband. For the way you were treated. You deserved better." I sat with that for a moment. An apology from Margaret Calloway. Sincere, from what I could tell. "Thank you," I said. "It won't change anything, will it?" "No." She nodded like she'd expected that. "Sarah came home last night. She was furious. She said you were being petty, that you were trying to punish Richard for something that had nothing to do with business, that you were sabotaging the fund out of spite." "What did you tell her?" "I told her she was a fool, that she'd thrown away a good man for—" She stopped herself. "Well, Jake seems nice enough, but he's not you. And the way she and Richard went about this, the public humiliation, the calculated cruelty, it was unconscionable." My phone buzzed. Another text. Another client confirmation. 26, I said, glancing at the screen. That's James Hartley. He's moving 400 million. Margaret closed her eyes briefly. Richard is beside himself. He's been calling lawyers all day, trying to find some legal avenue to stop you. They keep telling him there isn't one, that you're within your rights, that he should have renewed your contract. He should have. He will now regret that oversight for the rest of his life. We sat there, two people who'd shared holiday dinners and family gatherings and 14 years of awkward in-law dynamics, now sitting across from each other in the wreckage of everything that used to be. I need to ask you something, Margaret said, and I need you to be honest. Okay. Are you doing this because you're hurt, because you're angry, or are you doing this because it's the right business move? I thought about that question, really thought about it. Both, I said finally. I'm furious. I'm betrayed. I'm hurt in ways I didn't know I could be hurt, but I'm also a professional. I see an opportunity. I see a chance to build something that's mine, not Richard's, something where my work and my success belong to me. So yes, there's emotion, but there's also cold, calculated strategy. And you're willing to destroy Richard's fund to do it? I'm not destroying anything. I'm offering services to people who've worked with me for years. If they choose to follow me, that's their decision. If the fund collapses as a result, that's because the fund was built on relationships Richard thought he owned, but never actually had. Margaret stood, smoothed her skirt. You're right, of course. Richard treated you like property, like you came with the marriage, like you were part of the estate. He thought loyalty was something you could command, rather than something you had to earn. She walked to the door, stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, she said, I always liked you, Daniel. You were good for Sarah. You grounded her, made her think about things beyond shopping and social climbing. I don't know what happened between you two, when the love turned to indifference, but I'm sorry it ended this way. So am I. Will you, she hesitated, will you at least think about Sarah? About maybe talking to her, and not for Richard's sake, not for the fund, just for closure for both of you. There's nothing to say. There's always something to say, even if it's just goodbye. She left. The door closed. I sat there, staring at nothing. Michael came back in. That looked intense. It was an apology. Did it help? No, but it was nice to hear anyway. You want to call it a day? It's almost 6. We've been at this since before dawn. I checked my phone. 3 more texts during Margaret's visit, 2 more transfer confirmations, 1 message from someone I didn't recognize. I opened that one. This is Amanda Sutton. I think you're my brother. I read it 3 times. Daniel? Michael's voice seemed to come from very far away. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I think I might have, I said. I showed him the message. Michael read it. You have a sister? I have no idea. My parents died when I was 26. Car accident. They never mentioned any other children, but what? But maybe they had secrets. Maybe there were things I didn't know about my own family. Maybe on the day when everything I thought I knew was revealed to be a lie, one more revelation shouldn't surprise me. I called the number. A woman answered. Daniel? Who is this? My name is Amanda Sutton. I'm 32 years old. I was adopted as an infant. 3 months ago, I did one of those DNA tests, the ancestry ones. And you popped up as a sibling match. I've been trying to decide whether to reach out, and then I saw the news about you and, wait, the news? It's all over the financial sites. Top fund manager leaves Callaway Capital, takes billions in assets. You're kind of famous right now. I rubbed my eyes. Of course the story had leaked. Of course it was news. I'd just orchestrated one of the largest client exodus in the history of private fund management. Amanda, I said, I'm sorry. This is a lot right now. Can I call you back tomorrow? Of course. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pile on. When I saw the articles, I thought it might be now or never, to reach out to see if you wanted to connect. I do. I will. Just tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow. I'll send you my contact information. Take care of yourself, Daniel. She hung up. I sat there with the phone in my hand. You have a sister, Michael said. Apparently. Do you believe her? I don't know. The DNA test is pretty solid evidence, but I needed a process. I stopped, laughed. It came out harsh, humorless. I need a drink. Okay, let's go get drunk. We've earned it. We can't get drunk. We have a business to run. We have a business that's currently crushing its first day metrics. 28 confirmed transfers, 12.6 billion in assets, and more calls coming in tomorrow. I think we can take one night to be human beings instead of fund managers. He was right. I was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually drained. Fine, I said, but nothing fancy. I can't do fancy right now. I know a place. Dive bar in Southie, good whiskey, bad lighting, nobody will recognize you. Perfect. We locked up the office, took the T to South Boston, found the bar, a narrow space with sticky floors and a dartboard, and exactly the kind of atmosphere that didn't care about your life story. We sat at the bar, ordered whiskey, didn't talk for a while. Then Michael said, "Your wife cheated on you. Your father-in-law betrayed you. Your entire professional life imploded, and you might have a secret sister. All in 24 hours. When you put it that way, it sounds almost impressive." It is impressive. Most people would be catatonic. You're sitting here planning tomorrow's strategy. I haven't been planning. You absolutely have. I can see it. You're thinking about which clients to call first tomorrow, which relationships need immediate attention, how to structure the paperwork to make transfers as smooth as possible. He was right. Even sitting in this dive bar, half a whiskey down, I was strategizing. Richard was wrong about one thing, Michael said. He said you were conservative, risk-averse, too cautious. But what you did today, starting a new fund with no infrastructure, no safety net, no backup plan, that's the ballsiest move I've ever seen. You bet everything on your relationships, on your reputation, on people choosing you over the Callaway name. That's not conservative. That's all or nothing stakes. I didn't have a choice. You had 100 choices. You could have quietly moved to another established fund. You could have taken the severance and disappeared. You could have spent months planning, building infrastructure, easing into the transition. Instead, you sent one email and burned every bridge in 7 hours. That's not strategy. That's courage. I looked at my glass. The whiskey caught the dim bar light and held it. I'm going to tell you something, I said, and I need you to keep it between us. Always. I'm terrified, absolutely terrified, because all of this, only works if those clients actually transfer their money. If the paperwork goes through, if nobody changes their mind, we have transfer confirmations. But we don't have actual transferred assets. Not yet. And between now and when that money hits our accounts, there are 30 days for things to go wrong. For Richard to counteroffer, for Jake to prove himself, for my clients to have second thoughts. They won't, they might. And if they do, I'm finished. I've got no job, no wife, no safety net. I've got an office we're renting month to month and a business that exists entirely on promises. If this fails, I don't just lose, I lose everything. Michael was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're right. It could fail. The transfers could fall through. Richard could mount an effective counter-campaign. Clients could stay put out of inertia or loyalty or fear of change." Thanks, that's very reassuring. But here's the thing. I've watched you work for 9 years. I've seen how you handle clients, how you build trust, how you make people feel heard and valued and understood. And I'm telling you, those relationships are real. They're not going to evaporate because Richard offers a lower fee structure or Jake makes a slick presentation. The transfers will happen, the business will succeed, because you're not betting on luck. You're betting on 14 years of being excellent at what you do. I finished my whiskey, signaled the bartender for another. What about Sarah? I asked. What about her? Do I talk to her? Margaret said I should. For closure. Do you want to talk to her? No, yes, I don't know. Part of me wants to scream at her. Ask her when it started and ask her if she ever actually loved me or if I was just convenient. Ask her. I stopped. God, but I sound pathetic. You sound human. You just found out your wife of 14 years has been cheating on you for 7 months. You're allowed to sound however you want. I don't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. Then don't. Let the divorce lawyers handle it. You don't owe her a conversation. You don't owe her anything. The bartender delivered our second round. We drank in silence. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. You should check that, Michael said. Could be important. I pulled out the phone. 2 new messages. The first was from client number 33. Count me in, transferring assets next week. The second was from Sarah. We need to talk about dividing assets in the apartment. Call me. I showed both messages to Michael. Well, he said, The business is growing and the personal life is ending. That's progress, right? That's something, I agreed. We stayed at the bar until midnight, got progressively drunker, talked about everything except what actually mattered. By the time we left, the city was quiet and cold and my head was pleasantly numb. Michael poured me into an Uber. Go to my place, sleep in the guest room. We'll deal with tomorrow when tomorrow comes. I need to find my own place. You will, but not tonight. Tonight, you just need to sleep. I gave the driver Michael's address, watched Boston slide past the windows, lights and shadows and the endless anonymous architecture of a city that doesn't care about your problems. When I got to Michael's apartment, I didn't go to the guest room. I sat on his couch and opened my laptop. Checked the business email. 47 messages. I read through them all. Confirmations, questions, 3 new transfer commitments, 31 total, 14 billion in committed assets. Richard's fund was a third the size it had been yesterday. I checked my personal email. Divorce papers. Sarah's lawyer had already filed. Fast work. I opened the document, read through the terms. She wanted the apartment, the car, half of everything I'd ever earned during our marriage. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark, thought about 14 years of a life that had seemed stable and real and permanent. Thought about how quickly everything can fall apart. Thought about tomorrow and the day after and all the days stretching forward into a future I couldn't quite see yet. My phone buzzed one more time. Amanda Sutton. No pressure, but if you want to meet, I'm free this weekend. Coffee? I promise I'm not a serial killer. I smiled despite everything. Typed back, coffee sounds good. Saturday? Her response came immediately. Saturday's perfect. I'll send you a location. Sleep well, big brother. Big brother. I had a sister, I had a business. I had an empty apartment waiting for me to clear out my things. I had a future that looked nothing like the past. I sat there until dawn, watching the darkness slowly give way to gray, then pink, then gold. And when the sun finally rose over Boston, I stood up, showered, dressed in yesterday's suit, and went back to the office. There was work to do. The next 30 days were the longest month of my life. Not because they were difficult, though they were. Not because I was constantly busy, though I was. But because every single day I woke up wondering if this would be the day it all fell apart. The day clients changed their minds. The day Richard found some legal loophole. The day I discovered I'd miscalculated, overreached, bet everything on a hand I couldn't win. It never came. Instead, what came was this. On day 2, client number 34 called to confirm her transfer. $300 million. She also told me Richard had personally called her to discuss her options. When she'd informed him she was moving to my fund, he'd called me an ungrateful opportunist and hung up on her. She said that confirmed she was making the right decision. On day 5, when Jake Morrison published an op-ed in the Financial Times about the future of aggressive growth investing. It was full of buzzwords and empty promises and absolutely no substance. 3 more clients called me that afternoon to confirm transfers. On day 8, Sarah's lawyer sent another email. They wanted to settle the divorce quickly. Sarah was apparently eager to move forward with wedding plans. I told my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who charged $500 an hour and was worth every penny, to stall. Stall how long? Patricia asked. Until I don't care anymore, I said. That could be years. Then we'll stall for years. On day 12, I met Amanda for coffee. She was short, red-haired, freckled. Nothing like me. I'm tall, dark-haired, built like someone who forgets to eat lunch. But when she smiled, I saw something familiar. Something in the curve of her mouth, the way her eyes crinkled. I have our parents' wedding photo, she said, pulling out her phone. My adoptive parents kept it. They said someday I might want to see. She showed me the image. A young couple, early 20s maybe. The woman looked like Amanda. The man looked like me. That's them? I asked. That's them, Thomas and Ellen Sutton. They had you in 1987. They had me in 1993. And apparently somewhere between those 2 events, they decided they couldn't handle another child. So they gave me up for adoption, closed adoption, no contact. I didn't even know I was adopted until I was 16. I'm sorry, don't be. My adoptive parents are wonderful. I had a great childhood. But I always wondered about my biological family, and now She shrugged. Here we are, I echoed. We talked for 3 hours. She was a graphic designer, lived in Cambridge, had a girlfriend named Jen, loved hiking and hated seafood. She asked about my life. I gave her the abbreviated version, omitting most of the recent trauma. She saw through it immediately. You're going through something, she said. I can tell. You've got that look. Like you're holding yourself together with duct tape and force of will. I laughed. That obvious? Only to someone who doesn't know you well enough to think it's normal. What happened? So I told her. All of it. The party, the betrayal, the fun, the divorce. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, Your father-in-law sounds like an asshole. He is. Your wife sounds worse. She is. And you've responded by stealing billions of dollars and starting your own empire? I didn't steal anything. I know, I'm teasing. But seriously, that's incredible. Terrifying, but incredible. Are you going to be okay? I don't know. Ask me in 3 weeks when the transfers actually finalize. You're going to be fine, I can tell. How? Because you're my brother. And if we're related, you're stubborn enough to make this work out of pure spite. I liked her immediately. On day 15, Michael found us a permanent office. Better location, better space, actual furniture that didn't look like it came from a liquidation sale. We moved in over a weekend. On day 18, a reporter from Bloomberg called for an interview. I declined. She wrote the story anyway. The Quiet Revolution, how Daniel Sutton dismantled an empire in one email. It was mostly accurate. It made Richard sound petty and vindictive. It made me sound like some kind of folk hero. I wasn't a folk hero. I was just a man who'd been pushed too far and pushed back. On day 21, Sarah sent me a text. Can we please just talk, like adults? I didn't respond. On day 23, Richard was interviewed by CNBC. He said my departure was unfortunate, but ultimately positive for the fund's growth trajectory. He said Jake Morrison was exceeding all expectations. He said the Callaway name would continue to be synonymous with excellence in fund management. The stock price of Callaway Capital's parent company dropped 6% that afternoon. On day 27, Margaret called. Richard's in the hospital, she said without preamble. Stress-related, high blood pressure. The doctors say he'll be fine, but you want me to know in case I feel guilty? I want you to know because you're still family, whether you like it or not, whether Richard destroyed that relationship or not. You were married to my daughter for 14 years. That means something. It meant something, I corrected. Past tense. Daniel, I'm sorry he's in the hospital. I genuinely am. But I'm not responsible for his health problems. He made choices. He's dealing with consequences. That's not on me. When did you become so cold? When your husband humiliated me in front of everyone I know and your daughter looked at me like I was garbage she was relieved to be rid of. That's when. She hung up. I sat there feeling what? Guilty? I tried to summon guilt, couldn't find it. Just exhaustion and impatience and the distant thought that maybe Margaret was right. Maybe I had become cold. Or maybe I'd always been cold and just hid it better. On day 29, Michael and I reviewed the final transfer list. 39 clients out of 47, $18 billion. Tomorrow's the big day, Michael said. Most of the transfers finalize tomorrow. I know. Are you nervous? Terrified. Don't be. This is done. This is over. You won. It's not about winning, isn't it? Just a little? I smiled. Maybe a little. That night, I couldn't sleep. Again. I'd gotten maybe 4 hours a night for the past month. My body was running on coffee and adrenaline and stubborn refusal to collapse. I sat in my new apartment, a furnished short-term rental in the Back Bay, nothing like the penthouse I'd shared with Sarah, and watched the clock. 11:47 p.m., 11:53 p.m., 11:59 p.m., midnight, day 30, my phone stayed silent. At 6:37 a.m., it buzzed. Michael. First transfer just hit our account. Thomas Beckworth, 600 million. It's real. It's actually happening. I closed my eyes, breathed. By noon, 16 billion had transferred. By 5 p.m., 18 billion. We'd done it. I'd done it. I sent one text to Richard. As requested, all client transitions are complete. Wishing you and Jake the best with the fund's future. Professional, polite, devastating. He didn't respond. At 6 p.m., Patricia called. Sarah's agreed to settle. You keep your premarital assets, she keeps the apartment and car. You split the marriage savings down the middle. It's equitable. Fine. You don't want to negotiate? No, I want it done. Then it's done. I'll file the final papers. Divorce should be official in 60 days. I hung up. Sat in my new office, our office, mine and Michael's, the place we'd built from nothing in 30 days, and looked out the window at Boston. The city looked exactly the same. Indifferent and busy, alive. But I was different. 30 days ago, I'd been married, employed, comfortable. I'd been Daniel Sutton, fund manager, son-in-law, part of the Callaway dynasty. Now I was Daniel Sutton, founder of Sutton Capital Management, manager of 18 billion in assets, architect of his own future. Also, brother, friend, survivor. Also, alone. That last part was harder than I'd expected. The aloneness. I'd spent 14 years as half of something, half of a marriage, half of a partnership, half of a family structure. And now that structure was gone and I was just me. Some days that felt like freedom. Some days it felt like falling. You okay? Michael asked from the doorway. Yeah, just processing. We should celebrate, proper celebration. Not dive bar whiskey, actual champagne. Dinner somewhere nice. You've earned it. Tomorrow. Tonight I just want to go home and sleep. You need sleep. You look like hell. Thanks. I mean it. You're running yourself into the ground. The business is launched. The transfers are done. You can breathe now. I will, soon, I promise. He left. I stayed. As the sky darkened and the city lights flickered on, I pulled out my phone, scrolled through messages, clients congratulating me, colleagues reaching out, Amanda sending me funny memes, Michael reminding me to eat something. One message from Sarah. I heard the transfers went through. Congratulations, you proved your point. I stared at that message for a long time. Prove my point. Like this was about point proving. Like I'd orchestrated this entire thing just to show her, what? That I was valuable? That I mattered? That leaving me was a mistake? I typed a response. This was never about you. Deleted it. Typed. You don't understand anything. Deleted it. Typed. I hope you and Jake are happy together. I genuinely mean that. Sent it. She didn't respond. I went home, slept for 12 hours. Woke up to a world that was somehow both completely different and exactly the same. Made coffee, checked the markets, read the news. Bloomberg headline, Sutton Capital Management launches with 18 AUM, marking largest new fund debut in decade. I was famous now. Not celebrity famous, but industry famous. The kind of famous where people recognize your name and have opinions about you. Some thought I was brilliant. Some thought I was vindictive. Some thought I was both. I didn't care. I had work to do. 6 months later, things looked like this. Sutton Capital Management, 22 billion in assets under management, 4 new major clients, average annual return so far, 43%. Callaway Capital, 5 billion in assets. Richard had taken a leave of absence for health reasons. Jake Morrison was still officially in charge. The fund had returned negative 2%. Sarah and Jake had gotten married in October as planned. Small ceremony. I heard about it from Amanda, who heard about it from someone who'd been there. I didn't care. That was the strange thing. I thought I would care. Thought it would hurt. Seeing photos of Sarah in a wedding dress, her arm around Jake, both of them smiling like they'd won something. But I felt nothing. Just a distant, vague sense of having dodged a bullet. My divorce was finalized in December. I signed the papers in Patricia's office, wrote a check for the settlement amount, and walked out a legally single man. Michael threw me a divorce party. Just the two of us, Amanda and Jen, a handful of friends from the industry. We went to a nice restaurant, drank too much wine, told stories. Amanda gave a toast. To my brother, who responded to life falling apart by building something better. And to revenge served cold, professionally, and with excellent legal documentation. Everyone laughed, clinked glasses. I felt almost happy. Then January came, and with it a phone call I hadn't expected. Daniel, it's Margaret Callaway. I hadn't spoken to her since she'd called about Richard's hospitalization. 6 months of silence. Margaret, is everything all right? That depends on your definition. Richard would like to speak with you. I don't think that's a good idea. Please, She paused. He's not well. The fund is failing. Jake quit last month. Richard's trying to hold things together. But without you, without someone who actually knows how to manage the portfolio, it's collapsing. He needs help. He fired me, publicly, cruelly. He replaced me with his daughter's affair partner. Why would I help him? Because despite everything, you're a good person. Because you're professional. Because her voice cracked slightly. Because I'm asking. Not for Richard, for me. 25 years of marriage. 25 years of building something, and I'm watching it die, please. I closed my eyes, thought about revenge, about justice, about whether there was any satisfaction in watching someone who'd hurt you suffer. One meeting, I said. I'll listen, that's all I'm promising. Thank you. Can you come to the house? This weekend, Saturday afternoon? Fine, Saturday, 2 p.m. I hung up. Michael, who'd been listening, said, You're not seriously considering helping him? I'm considering listening. There's a difference. He doesn't deserve your help. Probably not. But Margaret does. And I'm curious. I want to see what he's going to say, how he's going to frame it, whether he's learned anything. And if he asks you to come back, then I'll laugh in his face and leave. But I need to know. I need to close this chapter completely. Saturday came. I drove to the Callaway estate for the first time since the party. 7 months. It felt like 7 years. The grounds looked the same. Perfect lawns, manicured gardens. The fountains still burbling away like nothing had changed. Margaret met me at the door. She looked older, thinner, tired. He's in his study, she said. Thank you for coming. She led me through the house, past rooms I'd been in dozens of times. The formal dining room where we'd had holiday meals, the living room where we'd opened Christmas presents, the hallway where photos hung, including one of Sarah and me on our wedding day. Someone had turned it to face the wall. Richard's study was at the back of the house. Dark wood, leather chairs, books lining every wall, most of them unread, I'd always suspected. Decorative. He was sitting behind his desk. He'd aged, too. His hair more gray than silver now. His face drawn. He looked up as I entered. Daniel, he said. Richard. Margaret left, closed the door. We sat there looking at each other. Thank you for coming, he said finally. Margaret asked me to. I'm here for her, not you. I understand. He stopped, started again. I made a mistake. You made several. Yes. But the biggest one was underestimating you, thinking you were replaceable, thinking the Callaway name was bigger than the relationships you'd built. I was wrong. Yes, you were. Jake lasted 4 months. He was completely out of his depth. The clients he didn't lose to, he lost to incompetence. The portfolio he did manage, he ran into the ground. By December, we were hemorrhaging money. He quit rather than face the consequences. And now? Now I'm trying to hold together what's left. $5 billion, down from 28. My legacy, everything I built, is circling the drain, and he paused, looked at me directly. I need your help. There it was, the ask, the moment I'd been waiting for. You want me to come back? I said, not come back, and I know that's impossible, but consult, advise, help me stabilize what's left, help me rebuild. I'll pay you whatever you want, give you equity, whatever it takes. No. Daniel, please, I know I don't deserve. You're right, you don't deserve anything from me. You betrayed me. You humiliated me. You destroyed my marriage. Don't look surprised. You knew about the affair for months and said nothing. You threw me away like I was nothing. And now that your consequences have arrived, you want me to save you? The answer is no. I'll give you anything. The fund. You can have the whole thing. I'll step down. Make you managing partner. It'll be yours. I laughed. Actually laughed. Richard, I already have a fund. It's bigger than yours. It's more successful than yours. It's mine, completely mine, with no one to answer to. Why would I give that up to bail you out? Because, he stopped. I watched him struggle with it, with the admission. Because I'm asking. Because I'm admitting I was wrong. Because you're the only person who can fix this. I'm not the only person. You could hire any number of competent fund managers. You have enough capital left to attract talent. You don't need me specifically. You just want me because you can't stand that I succeeded without you, that I built something better than what you had, that I proved I was never the problem, you were. His face hardened. There was the Richard I knew. The shark. You're enjoying this, he said. A little, I admitted. Is that so wrong? You spent 14 years making me feel small, making me feel like everything I achieved was because of your generosity, your connections, your fund. And now here we are, you begging for help, me, successful beyond what either of us imagined. Yeah, Richard, I'm enjoying this. So that's it? You'll let the fund collapse out of spite? I'll let the fund collapse because it's not my problem. You built your empire on my talent and called it yours. Now you're reaping what you sowed. That's not spite, that's consequences. I stood up. But I will give you one piece of advice, I said, free of charge. Stop trying to be what you were. That version of Callaway Capital is gone. Accept it. Rebuild smaller, smarter, more careful. Focus on quality over quantity. And maybe you can salvage something. But it won't be an empire, and you'll have to live with that. I walked to the door. Daniel, Richard said. I stopped, didn't turn around. I am sorry about everything, about what I did to you, what I let happen. If I could go back, but you can't, I said. None of us can. We just live with our choices. I left the study, found Margaret in the hallway. He asked you to help, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you said no. She nodded. I don't blame you. I hoped, but I don't blame you. Margaret, can I ask you something? Of course. Did you know about Sarah and Jake before the party? She looked at me for a long moment. Then, quietly, yes. I felt something crack. Some small piece I hadn't realized was still intact. How long? I asked. 3 months. I found out by accident. Saw them together at a restaurant when I was having lunch with a friend. I confronted Sarah. She begged me not to say anything, said she'd tell you when the time was right. I should have told you anyway. I should have. Her voice broke. I'm sorry, Daniel. I was a coward. Yes, I said. You were. I left. Drove away from the Callaway estate for the second and final time. Watched it disappear in my rearview mirror. That night, I met Amanda for dinner. How'd it go? She asked. He asked for help. I said no. It felt good. Good for you. The man sounds toxic. He is. But he's also human. Fallible. Desperate. It's hard to hate someone when they're that obviously broken. You don't have to hate him. But you don't have to save him either. No, I agreed. I don't. We ate. Talked about other things, her work, her relationship. My fund's continued growth. You seem lighter, Amanda said as we waited for dessert. I don't know. Less weighed down. I feel lighter, like I've been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. The marriage? The marriage. The job. The whole identity I built around being part of the Callaway world. It's gone now. And instead of feeling lost, I feel free. That's growth. That's therapy. And a lot of sleepless nights, and slowly realizing that the life I thought I wanted was actually making me miserable. Were you miserable? With Sarah? I thought about that. Not at first. At first it was good. She was smart, funny, ambitious. We had things in common. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being partners and started being, I don't know, roommates. People who shared space but not lives. We were married, but we weren't together. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. And then she met Jake and realized she wanted something different and didn't have the courage to tell me until her father orchestrated the big reveal, which makes her a coward, just like her mother. Just like her mother, I agreed. Dessert came. We ate in comfortable silence. I'm glad I reached out, Amanda said. When I saw that article about you, I almost didn't. Thought maybe you'd want nothing to do with a surprise sibling from a closed adoption. But I'm glad I took the chance. So am I. You're the best thing that came out of this whole disaster. That's sweet. Also sad, but mostly sweet. I drove home that night thinking about family. About how some families are accidents of biology and some families are choices. About how I'd spent 14 years with the Callaways and felt less connected to them than I did to Amanda after 6 months. About how maybe that said something important about belonging. The next week, Michael and I signed a lease on a proper office, top floor of a building downtown, views of the harbor, real furniture, space for a team. We're hiring, I told Michael. 4 analysts to start, maybe more as we grow. Big step, overdue step. We've been running this operation on adrenaline and luck. Time to build real infrastructure. You're really in this, aren't you? This isn't temporary. This isn't a stepping stone to something else. This is your career now. This is my career now, I confirmed. February brought our first audit. External review of our fund's performance, our compliance procedures, our client protocols, standard procedure for funds our size. We passed with flying colors. March brought a profile in Forbes. The fund manager who beat the old boys club. The writer painted me as some kind of revolutionary, fighting against nepotism and old money corruption. I wasn't. I was just a man who'd been pushed out and decided to push back. But I let them tell their story. It was good for business. April brought my first new major client, someone who'd never worked with me before, who came to Sutton Capital Management purely on reputation, a tech entrepreneur worth $400 million. She wanted aggressive growth, trusted me to deliver it, and wrote a check for $200 million in initial investment. Michael and I celebrated with champagne. Actual champagne, not dive bar whiskey. You've done it, Michael said. You've actually done it. Built a fund from scratch in less than a year that's competing with institutions that have been around for decades. We've done it, I corrected. You, me, Amanda. She designed our logo and website. The analysts we hired. This isn't a one-person operation. But it started with one person sending one email. It started with Richard Calloway being an asshole at a garden party. Silver linings. Silver linings, I agreed. That night, alone in my apartment, I pulled up an old photo album on my laptop. Pictures from my marriage, early years, middle years, late years. I looked at them with the distance of time, tried to find the moment where it went wrong. The specific day, the specific choice, the specific fracture that led to everything breaking. I couldn't find it. It wasn't one moment. It was 1,000 small moments of disconnect, of choosing work over conversation, of letting routine replace intimacy, of assuming tomorrow would be time enough to fix things, until there was no tomorrow, until there was Jake Morrison and a garden party and public humiliation. I closed the laptop, deleted the photos, all of them, not out of anger, not even out of hurt anymore, just out of readiness to move forward. 1 year after the party, 1 year after Richard Calloway stood in his garden and told everyone I was replaceable. I was sitting in my office, our office, properly ours now, with a team of 7 and a client list that had grown to 63 when Michael walked in with his laptop. "You need to see this," he said. He turned the screen toward me. Bloomberg article. Callaway Capital acquired by Westfield Partners in fire sale. I read the details. Richard had sold the fund. $3 billion. Not quite the complete collapse I'd predicted, but close enough. Westfield was a mid-tier firm. They'd keep the Callaway name for now, probably phase it out eventually. Richard was out, retired, done. "How do you feel?" Michael asked. I thought about it, tried to access some sense of triumph, some satisfaction in seeing Richard's empire finally, officially ended. Couldn't find it. "I feel nothing," I said. "That part of my life is over. Richard doesn't matter anymore. The fund doesn't matter. It's all just history." That's healthy. That's exhausting. I spent a year carrying anger around like fuel, and now it's just gone, and I don't know what to do with the space it left. You fill it with other things, new relationships, new goals, new versions of success that aren't defined by Richard's failures. When did you become a therapist? When you became my best friend and business partner, and I realized I had to either help you process or watch you implode. My phone rang. Unknown number, I answered it. "Daniel Sutton? Yes? This is Caroline Hendricks. Patricia's daughter. You manage my mother's portfolio." "Of course." "Hi, Caroline. Is everything all right?" "More than all right. I'm calling because I've just started my own company, medical technology, early stage, and I'm looking for investment capital. My mother suggested I talk to you first. Would you be interested in hearing a pitch?" I smiled. This was new. Venture capital wasn't typically my arena. But why not? Why not expand? Why not try new things? "I'd love to hear it," I said. "Can you come by the office next week?" "Absolutely. Thank you, Daniel." I hung up, looked at Michael. "You're smiling?" he said. "That's new." "I'm smiling because I just realized something." "What?" "This is fun, building this, growing this, trying new things. I spent 14 years managing other people's empire, following rules I didn't make, operating within boundaries I didn't set, and now you make the rules. Now I make the rules, I agreed. That night, I met Amanda and Jen for dinner. Real dinner at a nice restaurant, the kind of place I could afford now without thinking twice. So Sarah got divorced, Amanda said casually over appetizers. I nearly dropped my fork. What? Sarah, your ex-wife, she and Jake got divorced. Jen heard it from someone who knows someone who works at the law firm handling it. Apparently, Jake was having an affair. The irony is delicious. I sat back, processed that information. Sarah and Jake, divorced, after barely a year of marriage. The affair partner had cheated. How do you feel about that? Jen asked carefully. I stopped, checked in with myself. Really checked. I feel bad for her, genuinely. I know what it's like to be betrayed, to trust someone and have them throw it away. I wouldn't wish that on anyone, even her. That's very evolved of you, Amanda said. Or very tired. I've spent a year learning that revenge isn't actually satisfying, that watching people suffer doesn't heal your own wounds. Sarah made her choices. She's living with the consequences. That's enough. Would you ever talk to her again, if she reached out? I don't know. Maybe. Probably not. There's nothing left to say. We were married. We're not anymore. That's the whole story. We changed the subject. Talked about Amanda's new design project, Jen's promotion, my fund's continued growth. Later, walking back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Sarah. I heard about Richard selling the fund. I'm sorry it ended that way. I know you put a lot into building it. Hope you're doing okay. I stared at the message. Thought about responding, saying thank you, saying I was fine, saying I'd moved on. Thought about asking her about the divorce, about Jake, about whether she regretted anything. Thought about closure, about final conversations, about ending things properly. I deleted the message, blocked the number. Some stories don't need neat endings. Some stories just need to stop. And 2 years after the party, 2 years after my life imploded and rebuilt itself, Sutton Capital Management, 31 billion in assets under management, 15 employees, offices in Boston, New York, and a satellite operation we just opened in San Francisco. I was sitting in my office, the corner office now, the one I'd earned, when my assistant buzzed. Daniel, there's a Richard Calloway here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. I sat very still. Richard, here. Send him in, I said. The door opened. Richard walked in. He looked old. Properly old now, not just aging. 70-something. Gray. Smaller somehow. Like he'd been diminished, not just professionally, but physically. Daniel, he said. Richard, this is unexpected. I won't take much of your time. I wanted to see you, to see what you'd built. Margaret showed me the Forbes article, the Financial Times profile, the WSJ piece about your venture capital expansion, and I wanted to say I was wrong. Not just wrong about firing you. Wrong about everything. You were never the problem. You were the solution. And I was too proud, too stupid, too caught up in legacy and name and dynasty to see it. He walked to the window, looked out at the view. Better than his old view, I'd made sure of that. After I sold the fund, he continued, I thought I'd be relieved. Thought retirement would be restful. But instead, it's just empty. I go to the club, I play golf. I sit in my study and read books. And every day I think about what I had. What I destroyed. Not the money. I have plenty of money, but the purpose. The meaning, the work. He turned back to me. You took that, he said. You took my purpose and my meaning and my work. And the worst part, I deserved it. You were right. Everything you said, every accusation, every bit of anger, it was all deserved. Why are you here, Richard? I'm here to apologize. Properly. Not because I want something, not because I need something, just because you deserve to hear it. I'm sorry, Daniel, for everything, for what I did to you, for what I let Sarah do to you, for 14 years of taking you for granted. I sat with that. An apology, real, seemingly genuine. Thank you, I said finally. I appreciate that. Do you forgive me? No, but I also don't hate you anymore. I don't think about you enough to hate you. You're just someone from my past. Someone who taught me important lessons about trust and loyalty and knowing my worth. He nodded slowly. That's fair, more than fair. I'll leave you to your work. He walked toward the door. Stopped. Margaret wanted me to tell you something, he said. She's proud of you. She says you're doing exactly what you should be doing. And she misses you. Not as a son-in-law, just as someone she cared about. Tell her I miss her too, I said. And I meant it. Richard left. I sat alone in my office looking at the city. 2 years. 2 years since everything fell apart. 2 years since I sent one email and changed everything. I'd been so angry then, so hurt, so desperate to prove something, and now? Now I just felt tired and successful and lonely in a way that had nothing to do with Sarah or the divorce or the betrayal. Lonely in the way you feel when you realize you've spent 2 years building an empire and forgotten to build a life. My phone buzzed. Michael, from his office down the hall. Client dinner tonight canceled. Want to grab food? I typed back, can't. Meeting with Amanda. That was a lie. I didn't have plans with Amanda. I just didn't want company. I packed up my laptop, took the elevator down, walked out into the Boston evening. October again. The anniversary was tomorrow. 2 years exactly since the party. I'd been trying not to think about it. Failing. I walked without direction, through the financial district, past Faneuil Hall, toward the waterfront. The harbor stretched dark and glittering under the city lights. I found a bench, sat, watched boats drift past. My phone rang. I looked at the screen, expecting Michael or Amanda or a client. It was Margaret, I answered. Daniel, she said, and her voice was strange, tight. Richard just told me he came to see you. I didn't know he was going to do that. I told him to leave you alone, but she stopped. How are you? I'm fine. He apologized. It was fine. He's not well, Daniel. The doctors say it's depression. Clinical depression. Since he sold the fund, he's not himself. I'm worried about him. I closed my eyes, felt that familiar weight trying to settle back on my shoulders, the weight of caring, of feeling responsible. Margaret, I can't save him. I can't be his purpose or his redemption or his proof that he's still relevant. I have my own life, my own company, my own... I'm not asking you to save him, she interrupted. I'm asking if you'd be willing to have lunch with him, once a month, just to talk, about the markets, about business, about anything. He respects you. He admires you, even if he's terrible at showing it. And I think having some connection to that world through you, it might help. And what do I get out of this? The question came out harsher than I meant it, but I needed to know. What was in this for me? Why should I spend time with the man who destroyed my life? You get to be the bigger person, Margaret said quietly. You get to show that success doesn't require cruelty, that you can win without leaving corpses behind. And maybe you get something like family back. The flawed, complicated, difficult kind. But family nonetheless. I sat there, watched the water, thought about family, about Amanda, who'd come from nowhere and become essential, about Michael, who'd risked everything to follow me into uncertainty, about the team I'd built, the employees who trusted me, the clients who believed in me, about Margaret, who'd known about Sarah's affair and said nothing, but who'd also been the only Calloway to ever treat me like I mattered, about Richard, who'd been a terrible boss and a worse father-in-law, but who was also just a man, flawed, aging, scared of irrelevance. Once a month, I said, lunch, neutral location. We talk about business, not about the past. If he brings up Sarah or the fund or asks for favors, I'm done. Thank you, Margaret said, and I could hear the relief. Thank you, Daniel. I'm not doing it for him, I said. I'm doing it for you, and maybe a little bit for myself. To prove I can be in the same room with him and not feel anything. Whatever your reasons, I'm grateful. We hung up. I sat on the bench a while longer. Then I called Amanda. Hey, she said. What's up? You free? I need to talk. Always. Want to come over? Jen's making pasta. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I took the T to Cambridge, walked to Amanda and Jen's apartment, a third-floor walk-up with slanted ceilings and plants everywhere. It smelled like garlic and tomatoes and home. Amanda took one look at me and said, Wine or whiskey? Wine, she poured. We sat at their small kitchen table while Jen stirred sauce. What happened? Amanda asked. I told them about Richard's visit, about Margaret's call, about the agreement to have monthly lunches with the man who destroyed my marriage and career. Are you insane? Amanda said when I finished. Why would you do that? Because I'm tired, I said. I'm tired of being angry. I'm tired of carrying grudges. I'm tired of defining myself by what happened 2 years ago instead of what's happening now. You don't owe him anything. I know, but maybe I owe myself something. The chance to move past it, really past it. Not just professionally, but personally, emotionally. Jen brought over 3 bowls of pasta. We ate in silence for a moment. I get it, Jen said finally. After my dad left, I was so angry for years. And then he reached out when I was in college, wanted to reconnect. I said no at first, but eventually I agreed to coffee, and you know what? It helped. Not because we became close again. We didn't. But because I got to see him as just a person, flawed and human and small. And once I saw that, the anger just sort of deflated. Did you forgive him? I asked. No, but I stopped caring enough to stay angry. And that was better than forgiveness. That was freedom. I thought about that. Freedom. Not through revenge or success or proving something, just through letting go. Tomorrow's the anniversary, I said. 2 years since the party. Are you going to do anything to mark it? Amanda asked. I don't know. Part of me wants to ignore it. Part of me feels like I should acknowledge it somehow. Throw a party, Jen suggested. Invite everyone who's been part of your life these past 2 years. Celebrate not what happened then, but what you built after. That's actually not a terrible idea. I'm full of not terrible ideas, Jen said, grinning. We spent the rest of the evening planning. A party, Saturday night, nothing fancy. Just close friends, colleagues, the people who'd been there through the rebuilding. I left their apartment feeling lighter. Walked through Cambridge streets, past MIT where Marcus's daughter was thriving, past coffee shops and bookstores and all the ordinary infrastructure of life. My phone buzzed. Text from Michael. Please tell me you're not brooding alone somewhere. I smiled, typed back, just left Amanda's, going home to sleep. I'm fine, good, because we have a 9 a.m. with the tech founder tomorrow, and you need to be sharp. I'll be sharp. Promise. I got home. My apartment, still the same furnished rental, though I'd been meaning to buy something permanent for months, was quiet and neat and utterly impersonal. I needed to change that. Needed to make decisions about what came next, where to live, what kind of life to build beyond work. But not tonight. Tonight, I just slept. The party was Saturday night. We rented out a private room at a restaurant in the North End. 40 people showed up. Michael and his girlfriend, Amanda and Jen, my entire team from Sutton Capital Management. A handful of clients who'd become friends, Thomas Beckworth, Patricia Hendricks, Caroline, whose medical tech company had just secured Series A funding, partially through my venture capital arm. Even Marcus came, bringing his daughter Keisha, who spent 20 minutes telling me about her aerospace engineering classes. No one from the Calloway family. I hadn't invited them. The party was loud and warm and felt like proof that you could lose everything and still end up somewhere good. At some point, Michael clinked his glass for attention. Speech, someone called out. No speech, I said immediately. Yes, speech, Michael countered. This is your party. You're giving a speech. I stood reluctantly, looked around at all these faces, people who'd helped me build something from wreckage. 2 years ago, I said, I lost everything. Job, marriage, reputation, gone. And I thought that was the end of something. The end of my career, my life as I knew it, maybe my ability to trust anyone ever again. I paused. Found Amanda in the crowd. She was smiling. But it wasn't the end, I continued. It was the beginning of actually building something that mattered, something that was mine. And more than that, the beginning of understanding what success actually means. It's not the size of your fund or the number of zeros in your account. It's this. People who show up, people who care, people who help you stand back up when someone knocks you down. I raised my glass. So thank you, all of you, for being part of this new beginning, for believing in me when I barely believed in myself, for proving that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could have happened. To new beginnings, Thomas Beckworth said, raising his glass. To new beginnings, everyone echoed. We drank. The party continued. Music played. People talked and laughed and ate too much. I found myself by the window, looking out at the city. Boston on a Saturday night. Alive and indifferent and beautiful. You okay? Amanda asked, appearing beside me. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how different I feel. 2 years ago, if you'd told me this is where I'd end up, successful, sure, but also alone, starting over, having monthly lunches with Richard fucking Calloway, I'd have thought it sounded like a nightmare. And now? Now it just sounds like life. Complicated, imperfect. But mine? You're not alone, Amanda pointed out. You have me, Michael. This whole room full of people. I mean, romantically alone. I haven't been on a date in 2 years. Haven't even thought about it. It's like that part of me just shut down. Maybe it needed to. Maybe you needed time to figure out who you are without Sarah, without the Calloway identity, without any of that. And now maybe it's time to turn it back on. Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe you're fine exactly as you are. There's no rule that says you have to couple up to be complete. You and Jen seem pretty happy coupled up. We are. But that's us. You're you. And you get to decide what your life looks like. That's the whole point of what you built. Freedom to choose. I hugged her. When did my little sister get so wise? I was always wise. You just weren't ready to listen. The party wound down around midnight. People left in clusters, calling goodbyes, promising to do this again soon. Michael was the last to leave. He hesitated at the door. You good? He asked. I'm good. Really? 'Cause you've got that look, that thinking too hard look. I'm just processing. 2 years. It went so fast and also felt like forever. You want to know what I think? Always. I think you're exactly where you need to be. I think you're successful and stable and surrounded by people who care about you. And I think you're so busy waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong, for someone to betray you again, that you're not letting yourself actually enjoy it. Therapy much? I've been going, actually. It's helpful. You should try it. Maybe I will. Good. Now go home, sleep. And tomorrow, wake up and remember that you won. You actually won. Richard wanted to replace you and destroy you, and instead, you built something better than he ever had. That's not revenge. That's not luck. That's just you being excellent at what you do. He left. I stood in the empty restaurant, helping the staff clean up, even though they insisted I didn't need to. I took a cab home, climbed the stairs to my apartment, stood in the living room, looking at the generic furniture and blank walls. Monday, I decided. Monday, I'd start looking for a place to buy. Something permanent. Something that felt like mine. I checked my email. One new message sent an hour ago. From Sarah Calloway. Morrison at Gmail, subject. Can we talk? I stared at it, finger hovering over the delete button. Instead, I opened it. Daniel, I know I have no right to reach out. I know you probably hate me, but I need to say some things, and I need you to hear them. First, I'm sorry, really genuinely sorry for how everything happened. You deserve better. You deserved honesty and respect and a conversation, not a public humiliation. What my father did, what I let him do, was cruel. I was a coward. I am a coward. Second, Jake and I are divorced. I'm sure you heard. He cheated on me with someone from his work. The irony isn't lost on me, neither is the karma. I destroyed our marriage for someone who turned out to be exactly who you said he was. Charming on the surface, empty underneath. Third, I miss you. Not as a husband. I don't think we were really partners for a long time, and I think you know that too. But I miss having you in my life. I miss the way you used to explain complicated things simply. The way you'd make terrible jokes and laugh at them yourself. The way you made me feel like I could be more than just Richard Calloway's daughter. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not asking for a second chance. I'm not even asking you to respond to this. I just needed to tell you that I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed something good. And I'm sorry. I hope you're happy. I hope you've built something beautiful. I hope you've found someone who deserves you because I didn't. Sarah, I read it twice, 3 times. Thought about responding. Thought about all the things I could say, angry things, kind things, indifferent things. In the end, I typed, Sarah, thank you for the apology. I appreciate it. I'm not angry anymore. I was for a long time. But anger is exhausting, and I got tired of carrying it. You're right that we weren't really partners at the end. I don't think either of us was happy. We just didn't know how to admit it. I hope you're okay. I hope you figure out what you want and find a way to get it without hurting people in the process. I hope you learn to be brave. I'm not interested in rebuilding any kind of relationship. Not now. Maybe not ever. But I don't wish you harm. I just wish you well from a great distance. Take care of yourself, Daniel. I sent it. Felt something release in my chest. Some final thread of connection, severed cleanly. Then I deleted her email. Deleted my response from sent items. Created a filter so anything from her address would go straight to trash. Not out of anger. Just out of readiness to move on completely. I went to bed, slept deeply, dreamlessly. 3 years after the party, I was having lunch with Richard, our monthly lunch per the agreement I'd made with Margaret. We were at a quiet restaurant in Brookline, neutral territory, good food, far enough from both our lives that we could pretend we were just two businessmen discussing the markets. The tech sector's getting overheated, Richard was saying. Too much capital chasing too few viable companies. It's 1999 all over again. Maybe, I said. But the fundamentals are different. The technology is real this time. The business models are sound. I think there's still room for growth. You're young. You still believe in innovation. You're not that old. You could still believe in innovation too. He smiled slightly. I'm 74. I'm exactly that old. We ate in silence for a moment. These lunches had become comfortable over the past year. Not friendship, we'd never be friends, but something less hostile than enemies. Colleagues, maybe. Two people who understood the same world. Margaret says you're seeing someone, Richard said. I looked up, surprised. I am. Her name's Laura. She's a professor at Harvard. Behavioral economics. Serious? Getting there. 6 months now. I paused, searching for words. She's different from Sarah. Quieter, more grounded. She doesn't care about wealth or status. She just wants interesting conversations and good coffee. Sounds boring. Sounds perfect, I corrected. Richard nodded. I'm glad. You should be happy. You deserve to be happy. Thank you. Have you talked to Sarah? No, not since the email exchange 2 years ago. I think she's living in California now. Married again, I heard. Some venture capitalist. Third time's the charm? I hope so. I genuinely hope so. The check came. Richard reached for it. We'd been alternating, but today I let him take it. Small gesture. Meaningless, really, but it felt important somehow. Same time next month? Richard asked as we stood to leave. Same time, we shook hands, parted ways. I walked back to my office, months. The weather was warming. Early April, spring arriving in fits and starts. The city felt alive, emerging from winter. My phone rang. Laura. Hey, hey, I said. What's up? Just wanted to hear your voice. How was lunch with Richard? Fine, same as always. We talked about markets and pretended the past doesn't exist. Healthy, is it? Healthier than holding grudges. How do you feel? Good. Mostly good. Sometimes weird, like I'm having lunch with an alternate version of my father. The father who betrayed me but is now trying, in his limited way, to make amends. That's very insightful. You've been going to therapy. Dr. Morrison is very good. I know, I recommended her. I smiled. Laura. She'd entered my life unexpectedly. A blind date set up by Amanda, of all people. I'd almost canceled. Almost said I wasn't ready, but I'd gone. And she'd been wonderful, smart, funny, completely uninterested in my money or status. She'd never even heard of Sutton Capital Management. Had no idea who Richard Calloway was. She just liked me, for me. Dinner tonight? I asked. Can't, faculty meeting, but tomorrow? I could cook. You cooking sounds dangerous. I resent that. My pasta is excellent. Your pasta is pasta from a box with jar sauce. And it's excellent. Tomorrow, 7 p.m., my place. I'll be there. We hung up. I kept walking, past shops and restaurants and all the ordinary chaos of a city at midday. My phone buzzed. Michael, new client wants to meet, potential $500 investment. Can you do Thursday? I typed back, of course. Send me the details. Life. This was life. Work and relationships and monthly lunches with people who'd hurt you and slowly learning to let go of the past. I got back to the office. Spent the afternoon in meetings, reviewed portfolios, talked strategy with my team. At 6 p.m., I left, took the T home. I still hadn't bought a car, preferring the anonymity of public transit. My apartment, still the same rental. But I'd finally decorated. Art on the walls, real furniture, plants that Laura had insisted I needed. It looked like someone lived there now, like it was home. I made dinner, nothing fancy. Chicken and vegetables, ate while watching the news. My phone rang. Amanda. Are you sitting down? She asked. I'm eating, close enough. Jen and I are getting married. I grinned. That's amazing. Congratulations. Thanks. We wanted to tell you first. Well, you and Jen's parents, but you first among friends. I'm honored. When? Next fall, October. And Daniel, would you walk me down the aisle? I know it's traditionally a parent thing, but my adoptive parents are gone and our biological parents are obviously not an option. And you're my brother and I want... Yes, I said. Absolutely yes. Really? Really? I'd be honored. She exhaled, relieved. Thank you. Okay, I have to call about 40 more people, but I wanted you to know first. We hung up. I sat there smiling at nothing. Amanda was getting married. My sister. The surprise sibling who'd become one of the most important people in my life. I thought about family, about how mine looked now versus 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Sarah, Richard, Margaret, the Calloway dynasty. Now Amanda, Jen, Michael, Laura, my team, Marcus and Keisha, the clients who'd become friends. Better. This was better. I finished dinner, did dishes, sat on my couch and opened my laptop, checked our fund's performance. Still strong, still growing. We'd just crossed 35 billion in assets under management. I thought about where I'd be if Richard hadn't fired me. Still at Callaway Capital, probably. Still competent, still successful, still managing someone else's legacy. Still married to Sarah. Still pretending. Still slowly dying inside from a life that looked perfect but felt empty. I thought about the party, the announcement, the humiliation, the best, worst thing that ever happened to me. My laptop chimed. Email from Richard. Subject, thank you, Daniel. Just wanted to say thank you for lunch today. I know our arrangement is primarily for my benefit. Margaret was clear about that. But I want you to know it helps. Having someone to talk to who understands this world, who doesn't judge me, at least not out loud. I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately, about what I'll leave behind. The fund is sold. The Callaway name will fade. Sarah's in California barely speaking to me. Margaret is patient but disappointed. But maybe my legacy isn't the fund. Maybe it's you, what you built, what you became after I threw you away. Maybe the best thing I ever did was hire you, and the worst thing I ever did was fire you. And maybe those two things together created something that wouldn't have existed otherwise. I'm not trying to take credit for your success. You did that. But I wonder if you needed the push, the betrayal, the motivation to become who you are now. I don't know. I'm rambling. Forgive an old man's philosophizing. See you next month. Richard, I read it 3 times. Thought about responding. Thought about telling him he was wrong, that I'd have been fine without the betrayal, that success didn't require trauma. But maybe he wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe I had needed the push, the destruction, the complete dismantling of everything I thought I was. Maybe you can't rebuild yourself until you're broken down to the foundation. I didn't respond to the email. Just closed the laptop. Sat in my apartment, my home finally, after 3 years, and thought about beginnings and endings and the strange way they blur together. Tomorrow I'd go to work, make money, build my empire. Tomorrow night I'd have dinner with Laura. Maybe tell her I loved her, maybe not. We'd see. Next month I'd have lunch with Richard, listen to his theories, offer my own. Next fall I'd walk my sister down the aisle, watch her marry the love of her life. And someday, maybe soon, maybe years from now, I'd look back at the party and Richard's announcement and the complete destruction of my old life and think, thank you. Thank you for ending something that needed to end. Thank you for forcing me to build something better. Thank you for being the villain in a story that turned out to be about finding myself. But not tonight. Tonight I just sat in the quiet, content, successful, alone but not lonely. Tonight was enough. 5 years after the party. The office building in Boston's financial district had Sutton Capital Management emblazoned across the top floor. 40 employees now. 60 billion in assets under management. Offices in Boston, New York, San Francisco, and as of last month, London. I was standing in my office, the corner office with the harbor view, the one I designed myself, when Michael walked in. Richard Calloway passed away, he said quietly. I turned. When? This morning. Peaceful, apparently. Heart gave out in his sleep. Margaret found him. I sat down slowly, processed that. Richard was dead. How do you feel? Michael asked. I don't know. Hot, maybe. Not devastated, just sad. He was a complicated person. He hurt me. He also taught me. And over these past few years, we got into something like peace. The funeral's Friday. Are you going? Yes, I should be there for Margaret. Want me to come with you? No, I need to do this alone. But thank you. He left. I sat in the quiet of my office, thinking about Richard. Our last lunch had been 2 weeks ago. He'd seemed tired, but okay. We'd talked about the Chinese markets, about cryptocurrency regulation, about whether the Fed would raise rates. Normal topics, professional topics, the conversation of two people who understood the same language. He'd paid for lunch, shook my hand, said, see you next month. There wouldn't be a next month. I called Laura. She answered on the second ring. Richard died, I said. Oh, Daniel, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? I think so. It's strange. I spent so much time angry at him, then so much time trying not to be angry, and now he's just gone, and I feel complicated. Exactly that. That's normal. Grief is complicated when the relationship was complicated. Do you want me to come over? I'm okay. I just wanted to hear your voice. I love you. I love you too. We'd been saying that for a year now. It still felt new every time. I hung up, made another call, Amanda. I heard, she said immediately. Are you okay? Everyone keeps asking me that. I'm fine. I don't know what I am. That's allowed. You get to not know. The funeral's Friday. Will you come with me? Of course. Gen 2. Gen 2. We'll be there. Friday came. The funeral was at an Episcopal church in Brookline. Tasteful, understated. The kind of service wealthy people have. Nice flowers, professional choir, eulogies that talk about accomplishments rather than personality. Maybe 75 people attended. Friends, business associates, family. Sarah was there. I saw her across the church. She'd cut her hair short, lost weight. She looked smaller, less certain. She saw me, raised her hand in a tiny wave. I nodded back. After the service, people gathered in the church courtyard. Spring sunshine, birds singing, the cognitive dissonance of death on a beautiful day. Margaret found me. She was composed but pale, grieving but controlled. Daniel, she said, thank you for coming. Of course, I'm so sorry, Margaret. He cared about you, more than he ever said. Those monthly lunches, they were the highlight of his month. He'd spend days preparing, thinking of things to discuss, questions to ask. I didn't know that. He wouldn't have wanted you to. He was proud, stubborn, but he admired you, what you built, who you became. He told me once that firing you was the biggest mistake of his professional life, but also he said it had to happen, that you were never going to leave on your own, that you needed the push. He said something similar in an email once. Do you think he was right? I thought about that, about the alternate timeline where Richard never fired me, where I stayed at Callaway Capital, competent and comfortable and slowly suffocating. Maybe, I said, maybe I did need the push, but that doesn't make what he did right. It just makes it complicated. Everything with Richard was complicated, Margaret agreed. She looked around the courtyard. I'm selling the house. It's too big for me alone. And there are too many memories. Where will you go? Somewhere smaller, quieter. Maybe the Cape. Richard always hated the Cape. Too casual, he said. So it seems fitting. She touched my arm. Take care of yourself, Daniel. And thank you for giving him those lunches, for giving him back some purpose at the end. She moved on to other mourners. I stood there, alone in the crowd. Sarah approached. I'd been waiting for this. Hi, she said. Hi. You look good. Successful. I am successful. You look. Different. Divorced again. Did you hear? I heard something about that. Third time wasn't the charm after all. She laughed, but it came out hollow. I'm bad at this. At choosing. At knowing what I want. You were stable, and I mistook stable for boring. And I threw away something good for something exciting. And the exciting thing turned out to be empty. Sarah, I'm not asking for another chance. I know that's not. I just wanted you to know I know. That I understand what I lost. That I'm sorry. I know you're sorry. I got your email years ago, remember? I remember, but sorry and understanding are different things. Now I understand. Now I know what it feels like to be betrayed. To have someone throw you away for someone shinier. Karma's real, Daniel. And she's a bitch. I didn't know what to say. So I said, I hope you figure it out. I genuinely do. Are you happy in your life? I am. Very happy. Good. That's good. You deserve it. She walked away. I watched her go, felt nothing but distant sympathy. Amanda appeared at my elbow. That looked intense. It was fine, just closure, finally. You ready to leave? More than ready. We left the funeral, went to a diner, ate comfort food, and talked about anything except Richard. How's wedding planning? I asked. Exhausting. Why do weddings require so many decisions? Do we care about table linens? We do not care about table linens. But you're still excited? Ecstatic. Terrified, both. Is that normal? I think that's exactly normal. Were you nervous when you married Sarah? I don't remember being nervous. I remember feeling certain, which in retrospect was its own red flag. You should probably be at least a little nervous. That's weirdly reassuring. Laura arrived. I texted her the address. She slid into the booth next to me, kissed my cheek. How was it? She asked. Appropriately sad, but okay, I'm okay. Good. She looked at Amanda. So, table linens. I have opinions. They launched into wedding talk. I sat back listening, letting the normalcy of it wash over me. This was my life now. Funerals and weddings, business and family, complicated relationships with complicated people, success and stability in Laura's hand and mine. So different from 5 years ago. So much better. That night, back at my apartment, I'd finally bought a condo after 3 years of saying I would. Laura and I sat on the couch. You're quiet, she said. Just thinking. About? About how strange life is. How the worst things lead to the best things. How you can lose everything and gain something better. You're very philosophical for someone who spent the day at a funeral. Funerals make you philosophical. Are you okay? Really? I really am. I thought I'd be more upset. But mostly, I just feel grateful. Grateful that we got to those monthly lunches. Grateful that Richard and I made some kind of peace before he died. Grateful that I'm not still at Callaway Capital, slowly dying of boredom and pretending to be happy. Grateful for the betrayal. Grateful for what came after. She kissed me. You're a good man, Daniel Sutton. I'm a man who got lucky. That's different. No. Luck is random. You made choices. You took risks. You built something from nothing. That's not luck. That's courage. I thought about that. About courage, about the courage it takes to send one email and bet everything. About the courage to start over. About the courage to forgive without forgetting. About the courage to love again after betrayal. Maybe she was right. Maybe it was courage all along. Later, lying in bed, unable to sleep, I checked my phone. One email. From Margaret. Subject, Richard's will, Daniel. I know this is unexpected, but Richard left you something in his will. Nothing major. He knew you didn't need his money. But there's a letter. He wrote it a year ago and asked his lawyer to deliver it after his death. I haven't read it. Whatever he wanted to say to you, he wanted to say privately. The lawyer will send it to your office this week. Thank you again for coming today, Margaret, the letter. From Richard. Written a year ago, to be delivered after his death. I closed my phone, tried to sleep, couldn't. Spent the night wondering what Richard Calloway had left to say. The letter arrived Tuesday. Thick cream envelope, my name in Richard's distinctive handwriting. I held it for a full minute before opening it. Inside, 3 pages, also handwritten. Richard's generation. They still believed in the weight of ink on paper. Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm dead. which means I finally escaped Margaret's increasingly creative vegetable-based meals and her insistence that I take it easy. I'm joking, she was right to worry. My heart has been failing for years, just more slowly than expected. I'm not writing to apologize again. I've apologized enough while living. This letter is for something else. I want to tell you what I should have told you 5 years ago, or 14 years ago, or on your first day at the fund when you walked in with your Wharton degree and your nervous energy and your absolute certainty that you could prove yourself. You were the son I never had. I know that sounds melodramatic. I know I had daughters, plural technically, though only Sarah survived to adulthood. And I loved them. But they weren't interested in the work, the strategy, the building. They were interested in the results, the wealth, the status, but not the craft. You were interested in the craft. You understood it. You lived it. And watching you work, watching you take my fund and turn it into something magnificent, it was like seeing a masterpiece painted in real time. And I resented you for it. That's the truth I could never say while living. I resented your talent, your ease with clients, your instinct for markets, your youth, your future. All the things I was losing, you were gaining. And instead of being proud, instead of celebrating what we'd built together, I felt threatened. So I destroyed it. I found the one way to hurt you that would also hurt me. And I told myself it was about fresh energy, new perspectives, Jake's qualifications. But really, it was about me being unable to accept that I wasn't the genius anymore. You were. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm dead. What good would forgiveness do me? I'm just telling you the truth. So you understand it wasn't about you being inadequate. It was about me being threatened by your adequacy, by your excellence. You asked me once at one of our lunches whether I thought betraying you was worth it. I said I didn't know. That's a lie. I knew. It wasn't worth it. I threw away the best professional relationship of my life because I was too proud to be the second best fund manager in my own company. But here's the thing. Watching what you built after, watching Sutton Capital Management grow, watching you become who you are now, that was worth it. Not for me, I lost everything, but for you. You needed to escape me. You needed to build your own legacy. And you never would have if I hadn't forced you out. So maybe my greatest contribution wasn't the fund I built. Maybe it was the fund manager I destroyed so thoroughly he had no choice but to become something greater. That's hubris, probably. Pretending my cruelty was somehow beneficial, but let an old man have his delusions. 3 pieces of advice from a dead man who learned everything too late. First, don't let success make you cruel. I did. I had everything, wealth, reputation, family, and I squandered it because I needed to feel superior and stay humble, stay curious, stay kind. Second, the people who make you better are more valuable than the people who make you comfortable. I should have treasured you. Instead, I treasured people who told me what I wanted to hear. Learn from my mistake. Third, legacy isn't what you build, it's who you build. Companies collapse, funds fail, money disappears, but people, the people you teach, the people you help, the people you inspire, they last. They're the real legacy. I'm leaving you nothing in my will. You don't need my money, but I'm leaving you this letter in hopes that maybe it helps you understand. Maybe it closes something that needs closing. Thank you for the lunches. Thank you for the patience. Thank you for being better than I ever was. I'm proud of you. I should have said it while I was alive, but I'm saying it now. Take care of Margaret. She deserves better than me, but she loved me anyway. Make sure she's okay. And take care of yourself. Build something beautiful. Love someone worthy. And live the life I was too foolish to appreciate. Richard. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. Sat at my desk in the quiet of my office and felt something shift. Some final weight lifting. He was right about one thing. I had needed to escape him. Had needed the destruction. Had needed to be forced into building my own legacy. But he was wrong about something too. It wasn't his greatest contribution. His greatest contribution was showing me exactly what kind of leader I didn't want to be. What kind of person I didn't want to become. What success looked like when it was hollow at the core. I called Margaret. Did you read it? She asked. I did. Are you angry? No, I don't know what I am, but not angry. He meant it, you know, every word. He talked about you constantly in those last months. About what you'd built. About whether you'd forgive him. About legacy. He said to take care of you. He would. One last order to issue, even from beyond the grave. Are you okay? Really? I will be, eventually. It's strange. 53 years of marriage, half a century, and now I wake up alone, and the house is too quiet, and I don't know who I am without him. You're Margaret Calloway. You're brilliant and strong, and you'll figure it out. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you for everything, for the lunches, for the peace you gave him, for being bigger than he deserved. We said goodbye. I sat there with Richard's letter in my hand and thought about legacy, about what lasts, about what matters. Then I called my team together. All 40 employees crowded into our largest conference room. I want to talk about our culture, I said, about what kind of company we're building, not just in terms of returns or assets or growth, but in terms of how we treat people, each other, our clients, ourselves. I told them about Richard, not everything, but enough, about excellence without kindness, about success that hollows you out, about the difference between building wealth and building something that matters. I don't want us to be that, I said. I don't want to be a place where success requires cruelty or genius requires arrogance. I want us to be excellent, yes, but also decent, fair, human. I want this to be a place where 14 years from now, someone who leaves doesn't leave angry, they leave grateful, because we helped them become who they were meant to be. So that's the standard. Excellence with integrity, success with decency, winning without destroying. Anyone who can't commit to that, this isn't your place. No one left. That night, I took Laura to dinner at an absurdly expensive restaurant in the North End. What's the occasion? She asked. No occasion, just life is short. People die. We should eat good food while we can. That's very carpe diem of you. Richard died. It's making me philosophical. Funerals and anniversaries both. You're very philosophical this year. 5 years since the party. You've come a long way. We've come a long way, I corrected. You, me, Amanda, Michael, everyone who helped rebuild. Are you happy? She asked. Really, genuinely happy. I thought about that and about my life, my work, my relationships, the family I'd built from scratch, the success I'd earned without compromise. Yes, I said, I really genuinely am. Good, because I have something to ask you. She pulled out a small box, opened it. Inside a ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. Laura, I know it's supposed to be the man who asks, traditional gender roles and all that. But I'm a behavioral economist. I make decisions based on data, and the data says we're good together. We make each other better. We want the same things. So, Daniel Sutton, will you marry me? I stared at the ring, at her, at this brilliant, wonderful, unexpected woman who'd entered my life when I'd stopped looking for anyone. Yes, I said. Absolutely yes. She put the ring on my finger. People at nearby tables noticed, started clapping. We laughed. Kissed. Ordered champagne. I can't believe you proposed to me, I said. I can't believe you said yes so fast. I had a whole speech prepared. I want to hear the speech. Too late. The moment's passed. You'll never know what beautiful words I'd planned. I'm devastated. You'll survive. We stayed at the restaurant until they closed. Walked home through Boston streets. Engaged, happy, absolutely certain of nothing except each other. 5 years ago, I'd lost everything. Tonight, I had everything. Different everything. Better everything, everything that was actually mine.